I spent a year believing Gu Shihan was struggling beside me. In reality, my girlfriend was a rich heiress running a private loyalty experiment. Her final test was viciously simple. Empty the 100,000 yuan I had scraped together and see whether I stayed. There was one problem with that brilliant little experiment. The money was Grandma's surgery fund, tied directly to her last chance at survival. Staring at the bank card that had been completely emptied, I stood there in shock for several long beats, unable to come back to my senses. Suppressing my anger, I asked, Cheyenne, what did you spend the money on? Can you get it back? Gu Shihan was silent on the other end of the phone for several long beats before suddenly saying, Xiaoquan, if I told you I spent it all and can't get it back, what would you do? The second I heard that Gu Shihan had spent all the money, my first thought was that without it, Grandma could not have the operation. When I saw that I didn't speak for several long beats, Gu Shihan said in an easygoing tone, Xiaoquan, I know it was wrong of me not to tell you beforehand, but the money's already been spent. When I earn money later, I'll pay you back. Before she could finish, I hung up. Just then, a message arrived on my phone. Come to Aiken Bar. There's a surprise. As I studied the unfamiliar number and the inexplicable message, I had no idea why, but a wave of panic and unease rose in my heart. After hesitating for 2 seconds, I hurried out of the hospital, hailed a taxi at random, and went to the bar. Meanwhile, on the other side, Gu Shihan was still trying to test me. When Gu Shihan recognized me, she abruptly stood up and hurried over. The worry and confusion on her face made it seem as though she had no idea why I was there. Xiaoquan, why are you here? She asked, instinctively reaching for my hand. I avoided her. Xiaoquan, it's not what you think. Listen to me, explain. I studied Gu Shihan in front of me and suddenly gave her a gentle smile. Gu Shihan, let's break up. She froze, then desperately shook her head. No, Xiaoquan, listen to me. I flung her hand away, my voice still gentle but firm. Gu Shihan, let me go. I only have one request. Give me my money back. After a year together, she knew my personality. Once I decided to break up, I would never turn back. She had finally reached the point where she thought she could be with me forever. I'm begging you, don't break up with me, okay? I studied her calmly, then glanced around at the others in the room before my gaze finally settled on the man everyone simply called No. 10. Where Gu Shihan could not see him, he gave me an intimate, mocking smile. His lips moved as though he were saying, you can't beat me. I looked back at Gu Shihan and slowly said, fine. We don't have to break up. I only want 100,000. Gu Shihan looked troubled. Xiaoquan, can you wait one more day? I'm begging you. I studied her in disappointment and tried to steady my emotions. Gu Shihan, I only want the money that was in my bank account. Give it back to me, and from now on, we'll go our separate ways. She still tried to stop me, but at that moment my phone rang. The second I heard the words from the other end, my face turned deathly pale. I turned to leave, only for Gu Shihan to grab my hand. Xiaoquan, I won't break up. Gu Shihan, let go of me. No, I don't want to break up. I'll give you any amount you want. I turned and looked at her. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, I slapped her hard across the face. Gu Shihan, we're completely finished. With that, I walked out without looking back. The doctor said Grandma's condition had worsened and told me to return immediately. I was desperate to get back to the hospital and had no time at all to think about the mess between me and Gu Shihan. Desperate to reach the hospital, I gritted my teeth and rushed straight into the middle of the road. I slowly opened my eyes and saw the Maybach stop less than 10 centimeters away from me. A middle-aged man got out and anxiously asked, young man, are you okay? I'm fine. Sir, please, could you take me to the hospital? The man glanced awkwardly toward the back seat, clearly needing the permission of the woman sitting there. So I went directly to the rear door and knocked on the window. Miss, I'm sorry to trouble you. My grandmother is critically ill, and I need to get to the hospital urgently. Please help me. Even the driver was moved when he heard my plea. The next second, a pleasant female voice came from inside. Get in. Half an hour later, the car stopped steadily in front of the hospital. I barely had time to thank the woman before jumping out and running straight toward the operating room. As soon as I reached the operating room entrance, a nurse hurried out. Sir, please go pay the surgical fee right away. My fingertips turned white around the payment slip. Just as I was on the verge of breaking down, the girl's cool voice sounded beside me. Uncle Wang, go pay it. Yes, miss. Uncle Wang took the bill from my hand and headed toward the cashier. My eyes reddened as I stared at the girl. Thank you. Thank you so much. Expressionless, she took a clean handkerchief from her pocket and held it out to me. You're welcome. The second I took it, my throat felt blocked, and the tears in my eyes finally began to fall one by one. She did not say a single comforting word, but quietly stayed at my side. Young man, don't cry. Here, drink some milk tea and warm your stomach. I studied Uncle Wang through reddened eyes and were about to thank him, but he continued. Miss asked me to buy it for you. I turned to the girl beside me. Thank you. I had already lost count of how many times I had said those words that night. 2.5 hours later, the operating room doors finally opened and the doctor came out. I rushed forward. Doctor, how is my grandmother? Sir, I'm sorry. We did everything we could. My legs went weak and I almost collapsed. The doctor added, the elderly lady still has a little time left. Go say your goodbyes. Not long afterward, Grandma was wheeled out. I held Grandma's hand and softly called, Grandma. A kind smile appeared on her face. Just as she always had, she gently stroked my face. Why are you crying? Tell Grandma. Grandma will stand up for you. My tears fell like a broken string of pearls and would not stop. Grandma, don't leave me, okay? Her eyes grew moist too. With difficulty, she lifted her hand and gently patted my head. Grandma can't stay with you anymore. Grandma, your grandson is begging you. Please don't go, okay? Hearing my sobs from inside the ward, even a grown man like Uncle Wang had tears in his eyes. She turned to Uncle Wang and said, "Send the straw for testing." "Yes, miss." Uncle Wang took the milk teacup I had just drunk from and left. The girl looked at me inside the ward, her gaze deep and unreadable, as if wondering, is it really you? Inside, me clutched Grandma's hand tightly. My heart felt as though it were being cut by 10,000 knives. Seeing me so devastated, Grandma's own tears began to fall. What a pity I won't get to see my Xiaoquan get married. Isn't she here with you? Hearing Grandma mention Gu Shihan, my eyes flickered away. Grandma said nothing, but seemed to understand. If you're unhappy, then leave her. Grandma only wants you to be happy. I burst into tears. After a while, Grandma was the first to calm down. She gently wiped my tears away. Grandma doesn't have much time left. There are a few things I need to tell you. Go ahead, Grandma. I'm listening. After Grandma is gone, you must take good care of yourself. The person who loves you is more important than the person you love. Then Grandma can rest in peace. Crying, I gave a small nod. I promise. I'll live well, Xiaoquan. There's a small box under Grandma's bed. It contains all of Grandma's savings, the thing Grandma regrets least in. This life is finding you by the roadside. Grandma was so happy. Grandma, thank you. If you hadn't picked me up, I wouldn't even be alive today. Grandma lovingly stroked my face, her cloudy eyes studying I again and again. I stared at Grandma's closed eyes, too heartbroken to speak. Tears blurred my vision as I gently rested my head against her. Grandma, I will live well. Please go in peace. Outside the ward, the girl watched the scene. After staying in the ward for a while, I came out and were surprised to see that the girl and Uncle Wang were still there. Miss, you haven't left yet? As though remembering something, I started to mention the surgery fee, but the girl interrupted. I raised my head solemnly and asked, could you lend me some more money? I want to give my grandmother a proper farewell. The girl slowly replied, yes. Then she took out a business card and handed it to me. I'll be in Huacheng for the next few days. Contact me if you need anything. I glanced at the name on the card, Xiaoxi. The name suited her well. Thank you. I'll repay every cent I borrow from you. Xiaoxi did not refuse. She merely nodded and left with Uncle Wang. After borrowing the money, I began arranging Grandma's funeral. So I decided to have her cremated and planned to find a peaceful, scenic place where she could rest forever. Grandma, I'll take you home. Carrying her ashes, I went back to the small home where the two of I had lived together. Today's Gu Shihan looked completely different from the woman I had known over the past year. When Gu Shihan saw the urn in my arms and Grandma's memorial photo on it, she froze for a long while before finally speaking. Xiaoquan, Grandma. I ignored her and walked past her toward the house. Gu Shihan came back to her senses. So I couldn't find you these past few days because Grandma passed away. I turned and looked at her without expression. Miss, what do you want? Hearing me address her so distantly made her heart ache. She anxiously reached for my hand, but I dodged. Gu Shihan, I hate you. She looked hurt, as if I had done something unforgivable to her. I stared at her coldly. Gu Shihan, stop acting like the victim. Haven't I been the one getting hurt from beginning to end? Xiaoquan, I'm sorry. Grandma's death must have hit you hard. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you when you were suffering the most. My face did not soften at all. I only looked at her quietly. Gu Shihan, you disgust me. I had never spoken to her that way before, so she stood stunned for several long beats. Every time I saw her, I remembered that heartbreaking night. Gu Shihan, leave. I never want to see you again. Xiaoquan, I really know I was wrong. I know Grandma's death was a huge blow to you. I'm willing to stay with you. I cut in. Gu Shihan, do you know why I insisted that you return the money that night? The sudden change of subject left her confused. I shook off her hand expressionlessly, just as I had rejected her that night. Because the money you spent was Grandma's life-saving surgery money. If she could have had the operation earlier, maybe she wouldn't have left me. The words exploded in Gu Shihan's heart like a bomb. Her eyes widened in shock as she stared at me in disbelief. Xiaoquan, you're lying to me, aren't you? As I studied the woman deceiving herself in front of me, I shook my head coldly. The night I left the bar, you went to a hotel with another man, didn't you? Gu Shihan's eyes shifted away, clearly guilty. In fact, on the day Grandma died, I had received a photograph. In the photo, Gu Shihan was sleeping soundly while leaning against a fat, big-eared man. Shihan knew there was no hope left for her, yet she still refused to give up. Xiaoquan, I really can't live without you. Grandma may be gone, but you still have me. I promise I will. As she spoke, Gu Shihan grabbed my wrist. After running around for days, I was exhausted to the limit and could not break free immediately. Xiaoquan, I really love you. If I make you mine, then you won't leave me, right? Her words frightened I, and I began struggling desperately. The newcomer yanked Gu Shihan off I and slapped her hard across the face. I looked in surprise at Xiaoxi, who had appeared out of nowhere. Sister Xiaoxi. Gu Shihan looked at the woman, then at me. Watching how familiar the two of me seemed made her lose her temper. Xiaoquan, so you were in such a hurry to dump me, because you'd already found someone else? What, is this woman richer than I am? As a rich heiress herself, Gu Shihan could tell at a glance how expensive Xiaoxi's clothes were. I went still for a beat, then pointed at Gu Shihan and shouted, "Gu Shihan, get out." She immediately regretted what she had said, but words could not be taken back. She looked at Xiaoxi, then at me, and could only leave unwillingly. "Sister Xiaoxi, did you come here because you needed something?" Xiaoxi took out a document and handed it to me. I opened it and saw that it was a paternity test. I just stared at Xiaoxi. "So, are you trying to tell me that I'm your long-lost father?" Xiaoxi froze, then the corners of her lips curved into a beautiful smile. I had never expected the normally cold and aloof Xiaoxi to look so beautiful when she smiled. "Strictly speaking, you're the younger brother my childhood friend lost many years ago. My family and yours have been close for generations." I stared at the report in my hands, unable to digest the news that my biological family had been found. "I'm sorry. As soon as the DNA results came out, I informed your family. They should already be on their way and will arrive in Hawacheng tomorrow." To say I felt nothing at the news would have been a lie. Grandma had never hidden the fact that she had found me as a child. She had told me that she reported it to the police at the time, but after searching for quite a while and finding no trace of my biological parents, she eventually gave up and chose to raise I herself. Xiaoxi said, "Sorry, I made the decision on my own. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't need to apologize. Then do you want to meet them?" "I don't know. Grandma just passed away, and my head is a mess." "It's okay. They won't arrive until tomorrow anyway. Can you give me one night to think about it?" "Of course. I'll go first." I escorted Xiaoxi to the door, and before she left, me called out again, "Sister Xiaoxi, thank you." After seeing Xiaoxi off, I went back to the bedroom. They were among the very few pictures I had with Grandma. Wiping my eyes, I held Grandma's urn and cried through the entire night. Grandma had always hoped I would find my biological parents and reunite with them, so I decided to meet them. Not long after I left the small house, Gu Xian arrived outside it and got out of her car. She immediately knocked on my door, but no matter how long she knocked, no one answered. Xiaoquan, it's me. I don't want to break up. I don't want us to end." Gu Shihan kept talking to herself outside the door. Soon, the man everyone simply called No. 10 also arrived. Watching how desperately devoted Gu Shihan still was, he clenched his fists. Suddenly, thunder boomed and heavy rain poured down, soaking them instantly. "Shihan, it's raining. Let's get in the car and take shelter, okay? Get away from me. Today, I have to make Xiaoquan forgive me. Shihan, I told you to get lost. It's all because of you." The man looked straight at her and finally said, "But Shihan, I'm your fiancé. We're the ones who are supposed to get married." It felt as though those words struck a nerve. Gu Shihan turned around, her eyes red as she glared at him. "I will never marry you." Frightened by her expression, he hurried forward and hugged her. Meanwhile, at the airport, I threw my old phone and the SIM card inside it into a trash can. Without looking back, I carried Grandma's ashes and boarded a flight to the capital with my newly found family. After 20 years of frugal living, without thinking, I felt restrained and out of place. My older sister had been watching me closely. Noticing my stiffness, she immediately realized I was probably not used to this and sat down beside me. "Xiaoquan, are you uncomfortable?" I never expected the sister I had only just met to notice something was wrong. After hesitating, I gave a small nod and awkwardly scratched my head. "I'm honestly not used to it. Am I embarrassing you?" My sister smiled gently, took my hand tightly, and looked at me with warmth. "Don't think that. Your sister will teach you." As I studied my gentle sister, Youngsi, warmth filled my heart. It was wonderful. "Sis, you're so good to me." Hearing me call her sis made Youngsi's heart melt. Thinking about how far they had traveled just to find I quietly engraved that gratitude in my heart. When he saw my group, he immediately approached with a smile. "Sir, madam, young master, young miss, second young master." It was the first time anyone had called me second young master, and the title felt rather novel. Still, I politely smiled at the butler. "Hello." The butler froze for a moment. Clearly, he had not expected the long-lost second young master to be so polite and bright. "Sir, madam, young master, young miss, please get in the car." My father nodded, then looked at me and Xiaoxi. "You two get in first." I and Xiaoxi entered the same car, and after exchanging a glance, my parents followed. I smiled at her. "Sister Xiaoxi, thank you." That one, thank I, contained far more than the words themselves, gratitude for helping Grandma, and gratitude for helping me find my family. She still had that cool, elegant, aristocratic face, yet somehow I saw a trace of tenderness in the way she looked at me. "You're welcome." It was only right. My heart seemed to beat a little faster. Feeling embarrassed, I lowered my head and no longer dared look directly at her. My mother noticed and exchanged a glance with my father. They smiled at one another, and the way they looked at me and Xiaoxi became even gentler. She explained, "From here onward, everything belongs to your family." My mouth fell open in surprise. This is only the tip of the iceberg. You'll understand later. The car continued for another half hour. When she noticed my blank expression, she laughed. "It's fine. You just need to know they're very expensive." Laughter immediately filled the car. I got out and stared at the grand buildings, totally stunned. My mother took my hand and smiled gently. "Xiaoquan, this is your home. The villa on the left is Xiaoxi's family's ancestral residence. The one on the right is ours." As I studied the two houses, which appeared almost identical, I could only marvel at how close the two families were. Someone called out anxiously, "Mom, slow down. The old woman answered, move faster. If I'm too late, I won't get to see my grandson-in-law. I was completely confused. Who was she talking about? My older brother, Yunhao. My gaze shifted between Xiaoxi and Yunhao. Noticing my stare, Yunhao immediately stepped several paces to the side, putting distance between himself and Xiaoxi, and even flashed a mischievous smile. The elderly woman rushed directly up to me, looked I over from head to toe, then took my hand and praised me excitedly. Not bad at all. My grandson-in-law is so handsome. My head filled with question marks. So the grandson-in-law she was talking about was actually I. Thinking that she was an elder, and it could never be wrong to greet her politely, I said, Grandma, hello. The moment the word grandma left my mouth, the old woman's eyes lit up. She turned proudly to everyone else. Did you hear that? My grandson-in-law called me, Grandma. The others shook their heads helplessly. Did I really have some childhood engagement I knew nothing about? The old woman was about to continue when Xiaoxi spoke calmly. Grandma, Xiaoquan just came back. Don't scare him. Seeing her granddaughter speak up, the old woman looked from her granddaughter to her supposed grandson-in-law and finally relented. Okay, I'll listen to you. Xiaoxi then turned to my parents. Uncle, auntie, I'll take grandma and my parents back first. Okay. We'll have dinner together in a couple of days, definitely. Xiaoxi turned and supported her grandmother by the arm. She left with her parents. My mother took my hand and led me toward the villa on the right. As my group approached, they all spoke in unison. Welcome home, young master. The display startled I. Only at that moment did the reality of having come home finally begin to settle in. My parents took my hands and led me inside. Although she had not conducted any formal investigation, my mother had asked around in advance about my preferences. She pushed open the door, and the second I saw the furnishings, I perked up immediately. Xiaoquan, Mom didn't know your preferences, so I took the liberty of decorating the room for you. If there's anything you don't like, just tell me and I'll have it changed immediately. I had never been demanding about my living environment. Compared with the tiny home where I had grown up with Grandma, this room was unbelievably comfortable. Mom, there's no need to change anything. It's so much better than where I used to live. Hearing this, my mother's eyes reddened again. After thinking for a moment, I tentatively rested my head against her shoulder. Mom, don't be sad. Haven't I come back to you now? She quickly wiped away her tears. You're right, Xiaoquan. From now on, Mom will make up for everything and treat you twice as well. I gave a small nod. I sat beside my mother and the two of me talked for a while longer before she finally left reluctantly. It was huge, larger than the entire little home I had shared with Grandma and filled with all kinds of luxury items. The lights came on instantly, and I found myself staring directly at Xiaoxi, who was wearing a bathrobe. Seeing me staring, the corner of her mouth curled upward. Does it look good? I snapped back to reality. Sorry. I slammed the door shut and fled in a panic down the long corridor back to my own room. Leaning against the door, I panted softly, but my mind kept replaying the image of Xiaoxi in her bathrobe and her fair, delicate skin. My face burned hotter and hotter. I took deep breaths, trying to calm myself, but Xiaoxi's image lingered in my mind and refused to disappear. In my dream, I saw Grandma standing not far away, looking at me lovingly. I hurried toward her. Grandma, Xiaoquan, Grandma misses you too. She reached out and stroked my head with the same tenderness as before. Xiaoquan, Grandma is very happy to see that you've reunited with your family. Now I can finally stop worrying. My eyes reddened, but I forced myself not to cry. Grandma, Dad, and Mom are really good to me. I'll live well with them. Grandma smiled gently and rubbed my head. Xiaoquan, be good from now on. Then Grandma can leave without worry. Hearing her say she was leaving, me hurriedly reached out to grab her, but her voice grew fainter and fainter. With red eyes, I called after her, Grandma, have a safe journey. Grandma nodded to me, then quietly turned into points of light and vanished before my eyes. A single tear slowly slipped from the corner of my eye. Grandma, I miss you so much. Early that morning, my mother got up and immediately went to my room. Hearing footsteps, I lifted my gaze and found all 4 members of the Yun family standing there, stunned. I smiled. Dad, Mom, brother, sis, I made breakfast. Come eat. They came back to their senses and immediately gathered around the table. My sister blinked curiously at me. Xiaoquan, did you make all of this? I gave a small nod. I woke up early, so I made a little something. Try it and see if it suits your taste. My mother took my hand with concern. Xiaoquan, you got up this early just to make breakfast. I gave a small nod, then suddenly realized what she might think and hurried to explain. I just couldn't sleep this morning, so I got up and cooked. It has nothing to do with the servants. Watching how anxiously I defended the household staff, everyone understood that I was worried they might be blamed for being lazy. My mother said carefully, Mom understands. You can sleep a little longer. My father put an arm around me and my mother. He drew both of me toward the dining table. Okay. Let's hurry and taste our son's cooking before breakfast gets cold. My mother smiled and nodded. Okay, Mom will try it right now. Before cooking, I had specifically asked the household staff about everyone's tastes and prepared breakfast accordingly. After the 4 members of the Yun family tasted the food, expressions of surprise and satisfaction appeared on every face. My father praised me enthusiastically. Delicious. You're almost as good as the chefs at home. Everyone else nodded in agreement. I said calmly, during summer vacation in high school, I worked at a breakfast shop. People lined up before dawn every day. I told the story without any intention of seeking pity, but my family heard it very differently. Their younger brother had spent his high school summer vacation working to earn money, while they had been out having fun, meeting friends, shopping, and enjoying themselves. Their guilt deepened. My father and Yunhao exchanged complicated expressions, then both pulled black cards from their pockets and stuffed them into my hands. Apparently, my low-key phase had the lifespan of a New Year's resolution. Xiaoquan, take these. Spend as much as you like. I just stared at the two black cards in my hands. My sister also started reaching into her pocket, and I stopped her. Sis, don't take yours out too. I tried to return the two cards to my father and brother. Dad, brother, you should keep these. I don't need them. My refusal clearly made them unhappy. My mother picked up the cards and placed them back in front of me. She looked at me gently. Xiaoquan, your father and brother only want to make up for what you've missed. Just accept them. I studied my mother, then at my father and Yunhao, who both wore almost aggrieved expressions. The old woman's voice arrived before she did. Grandma came to see you. The Yun family stood to greet them. Seeing the table full of breakfast, Xiaoxi's grandmother asked in surprise, Little Yun, did you change your breakfast, chef? My father looked at me proudly. Xiaoquan got up early and made breakfast. Grandma, come join us for breakfast. The moment the old woman heard that her future grandson-in-law had cooked it, she immediately sat down, picked up her chopsticks, and started eating. I called out, Grandma, wait a moment. Her chopsticks paused in midair. With everyone watching, I felt a little embarrassed. I heard Grandma might come, so I specially made these lighter dishes. It's better for older people to eat something mild in the morning. Everyone in the neighboring family knew that the old woman preferred strong flavors and disliked bland food most of all. Xiaoxi was just about to say something when her grandmother cheerfully began eating, showing no dislike or reluctance whatsoever. As she ate, the old woman smiled at me. My grandson-in-law knows how to care for people, unlike the rest of them. Xiaoxi looked at her grandmother speechlessly. Grandma, haven't I also told you to eat lighter food? Xiaoquan says one sentence, and suddenly you're happy to eat it. The older generation smiled and invited Xiaoxi to sit. When I placed breakfast in front of her, I remembered the awkward incident from the night before, and embarrassment crossed my face. As I studied the breakfast, a faint smile appeared on her lips. Thank you. Her pleasant voice sounded beside my ear, and my heart involuntarily skipped a beat. I took a breath and replied, You're welcome. Everyone else watched the interaction and exchanged knowing looks. After breakfast, Xiaoxi's grandmother pulled my mother aside and asked about my experiences over the years. Just then, Xiaoxi's cool voice sounded beside me. Would you come outside for a walk with me? I turned and found her standing quietly behind me. Her grandmother and my mother immediately smiled at the two of me. My mother said, Go on. A walk would be good. The old woman was even more eager. Xiaoxi, hurry and take Xiaoquan around the neighborhood so he can get familiar with the surroundings. With both elders encouraging it would have felt awkward to refuse. So I left the living room with Xiaoxi. Watching my backs, my mother and Xiaoxi's grandmother smiled with satisfaction. The old woman said, Looks like the two children don't dislike each other. My mother replied, Yes, it would be wonderful if they really took a liking to one another. I and Xiaoxi walked into the courtyard. As I studied the beautifully maintained grounds, I felt my mood improve. Xiaoxi walked silently beside me, and the silence was becoming awkward, so I was trying to think of something to say when she spoke first. Xiaoquan, you know our families have been close for generations, right? I gave a small nod. I know. Why? Xiaoxi continued. Then do you know that our families arranged a childhood engagement for us? I stared at her in surprise. Me truly had not known. Still, after her grandmother had repeatedly called me her grandson-in-law the day before, I had guessed something along those lines. I answered honestly, my parents haven't had time to tell me yet, but I guessed a little from what Grandma said yesterday. Xiaoxi suddenly stepped closer, stopping right in front of me. The corner of her lips curved in a teasing smile. Then what do you think about it? Her sudden closeness made me freeze. Once I recovered, I said, I haven't decided yet. Xiaoxi stepped back, her tone relaxed. You didn't reject me outright. Looks like I still have a chance. I stared at her in disbelief. A cold, CEO-like woman such as Xiaoxi could actually say something like that. I struggled to calm my heartbeat and looked up at her. What about you? What do you think of this engagement? I didn't believe I was the kind of man who could make Xiaoxi fall in love at first sight. Her voice remained gentle. I don't dislike it. Not disliking it. Did that mean she liked it? As I studied the smiling woman in front of me, I felt my heart speed up. I tried to calm my restless heart and looked at her as though nothing had happened. So, will you accept the engagement our elders arranged? Xiaoxi glanced at me, then suddenly stepped forward and took my hand. I can wait until you're willing. My heartbeat instantly sounded like thunder in my ears. I just stared at Xiaoxi's almost celestial face as she held my hand. Seeing my reaction, Xiaoxi's lips lifted a little higher. Looks like you're quite satisfied with this face of mine. I snapped back to my senses. Sister Xiaoxi, I need a moment to calm down. Then I remembered an awkward issue. After hesitating for a long while, I slowly spoke again. Sister Xiaoxi. Call me Xiaoxi from now on. Okay, Sister Xiaoji, there's something I have to be honest with you about. She seemed to know what I was about to say, and the smile in her eyes faded slightly. You want to tell me about you and your ex-girlfriend? I gave a small nod. Xiaoxi leaned closer again. How far did the two of you go? I never expected her to be so direct and needed several seconds to recover. We dated for a year. So during the year I dated Gu Shihan, the most intimate thing we ever did was hug tightly. I never even kissed her on the lips. Seeing the way Xiao Shi looked at me, I awkwardly scratched my head, completely failing to notice the smile beginning to form at the corner of her mouth. For some reason, I didn't want her to misunderstand, so I added, Gu Shihan and I have already broken up. It's completely over, and I will never go back. Only after saying that did I notice the amusement in Xiao Xi's eyes. Sister Xiao Xi, you've to believe me. Her lips curved upward, and she seemed to be in an excellent mood. She suddenly moved closer and asked lightly, then, can I kiss you? What? For a moment, I thought I had misheard. Sister Xiao Xi, what did you just say? As I studied my flustered expression, she patiently repeated herself. Can I kiss you? I stared at her, my thoughts instantly turning into a complete mess. My body was more honest than my confused brain, and I gave a tiny nod. Xiao Xi then stepped back. Okay, we have plenty of time in the future. While I was still dazed, she took my hand again. Come on, I'll show you around. I gave a small nod and let her pull I forward. Xiao Xi suddenly said, I've already found a cemetery plot for Grandma with good feng shui, and the selected date is suitable. Do you want to see her off on her final journey? I gave a small nod. I had carried Grandma's ashes all the way to the capital because I wanted her to rest here, so of course I wanted to be present. Still, I was surprised that Xiao Shi had personally taken charge of finding the burial site. Sister Xiao Shi, aren't you busy these days? In my impression, the richer someone was, the busier they tended to be. Her family had such a huge company and so many businesses that she had to be occupied every day. She only smiled at me. It's fine. I can slack off. I studied her in surprise. I took Grandma's photograph from beneath my pillow and stared at it in a daze. Grandma, I think I've met the person you said would love me. That evening, just after I finished showering and stepped out, someone knocked on my door. I headed to open it and found my mother and older sister, Yunxi, standing outside. Mom, sis, come in. The mother and daughter entered and sat with me on the bed. My mother stroked my head. Xiaoquan, is there anything you're still not used to after coming home? If anything feels uncomfortable, you must tell Mom. I gave a small nod. There's nothing I'm not used to. I'm actually adapting pretty well. My mother nodded, then said, Xiaoquan, actually, before you were born, your grandfather and Grandpa Yan next door arranged a childhood engagement between you and Xiaoxi. But Mom sees that you and Xiaoxi get along rather well. So, I gave a small nod thoughtfully, but one question had been bothering I. I studied my mother and asked, why wasn't the engagement originally with brother? He was born before me. Yunxi waved her hand. Xiaoxi isn't brother's type. Besides, she doesn't like him either. My mother smiled. Back then, the elders of both families really did want to arrange an engagement between Xiaoxi and Yunhao. If your grandfather had forced them together, they would have become a pair of enemies, so the idea was dropped. It happened that I became pregnant with you around that time, so your grandfather decided to arrange the engagement between you and Xiaoxi instead. Yunxi continued, but whether you two actually end up together is up to the two of you. So, Xiaoquan, what do you think? My mother wanted to know too. If I clearly said that I didn't like Xiaoxi, they would never force I to honor the childhood engagement and marry her. I remembered what had happened in the courtyard during the day and said, I don't dislike her. My mother and Yunxi immediately broke into smiles. Xiaoquan, you didn't reject the idea outright. That means there's still a possibility, right? I gave a small nod. I did have a very good impression of Xiaoxi. Then I told my mother, Mom, I don't plan to date anyone for the time being though. My mother and Yunxi froze, then looked at me in confusion. Why, Xiaoquan, I can tell you like Xiaoxi at least a little. After hesitating, I finally told them what had happened between me and Gu Shihan. Yunxi was so furious she sprang to her feet, looking as though she wanted to go find Gu Shihan and slap her twice more. My mother, meanwhile, stared at me with red-rimmed eyes. My poor son, you've suffered so much. It was midnight before I finally persuaded the two women to leave. I had agreed to go with Xiaozi to take Grandma's ashes to the cemetery, so I sat in the living room waiting early. I pointed at myself. Sister Xiaoxi, this is for me? Open it and see whether you like it. Curious, I took out a box. I had just been thinking about buying a new phone, but Xiaoxi had gotten one for me first. You bought this for me? Not exactly. If not, I'll have them send a few more models over. I played with the new phone, smiling. I was just thinking about buying one. Sister Xiaoxi, you really came at the perfect time. A faint smile appeared on her face. As long as you like it, shall we go now? I gave a small nod, slipped the phone into my pocket, and picked up Grandma's urn. I left with Xiaoxi and went to Kunshan Cemetery. Xiaoxi stayed beside me as the two of me followed a staff member to the burial plot she had purchased. Xiaoxi stood quietly to one side watching me. My eyes were red, but I didn't cry. I knew Grandma would not want to see me break down every single time. After everything was arranged, I stood before Grandma's gravestone and turned to Xiaozi. Sister Xiaozi, could you wait for me in the car? I want to talk to Grandma alone for a little while. Xiaoxi nodded gently and turned away. I looked back at Grandma's kind smile on the gravestone, and my tears finally escaped. I leaned gently against the stone, just as I had once leaned against Grandma. Wiping the tears from my face, I whispered, Grandma, am I useless? If you'd had the operation earlier, maybe you wouldn't have left me. I dreamed that you stroked my head. the way you used to and told me, Xiaoquan, be good. Grandma, do you know? Oh right, Grandma, I haven't told you yet, Sister Xiaoxi, and I even have a childhood engagement. Grandma, I think I might be starting to like Sister Xiaoxi, if only you were still here. I closed my eyes, but the tears kept flowing. Grandma, I still wanted you to see me get married. A gentle breeze suddenly passed by, like Grandma's hand caressing my face. The rustling leaves around me sounded almost like her voice whispering, our Xiaoquan must be good. Grandma will always be by your side. I struggled to steady my emotions, wiped away my tears, then looked at Grandma's smiling photograph on the stone and slowly smiled too. Okay, Grandma, whenever I have time I'll come visit you. I gazed at Grandma for a long while longer before finally standing up. I headed toward Xiaoxi, who at some point had returned and was standing not far away. I studied her in surprise. Sister Xiaoxi, weren't you waiting in the car? She gave me a gentle look. I was a little worried, so I came back. Warmth flowed through my heart at her expression. Okay, Sister Xiaoxi, let's go home. I and Xiaoxi had only just returned to the Yun family's ancestral residence when my mother and Yungxi hurriedly dragged me back out. Xiaoxi had not even had time to get into her own car before she was pulled along as well. Sitting in the car, I looked curiously at my mother and Yungxi. Where are we going? My mother smiled. We're taking you for a full physical examination. Then we'll know how to help you build your body back up. Yungxi beside her nodded seriously. Xiaoxi, sitting nearby, saw that I still wanted to protest and also spoke up. Xiaoquan, they're only worried about your health. If you get a full checkup, everyone can feel reassured. As I studied the serious Xiaoxi, I asked, does everyone include you? The car instantly fell silent, just when I wanted the floor to open up. Offer me a long-term lease? Xiaoxi answered, it includes me too. Yungxi, who had been enjoying the show, immediately teased, oh my, look at that. We said so much, but none of it mattered as much as one sentence from Xiaoxi. Comparisons really are infuriating. Sis, don't talk nonsense. Yungxi looked towards Xiaoxi. Hear that, Xiaoxi? My brother wasn't persuaded because of you. Xiaoxi replied calmly. Then I'll keep trying next time. I looked helplessly at the two women. Yungxi had a more impatient temper, and when the nurse missed yet again, she became unhappy. Do you actually know how to draw blood? Are you using my little brother like a practice dummy? The young nurse was sweating with anxiety. Seeing the panic in her eyes, I said, sis, it's okay. My veins are too thin. One of my arms was already covered in failed needle marks, and the nurse was nearly in tears. Suddenly, Xiaoxi spoke from beside me. Let me do it. Everyone immediately turned toward her. Yunxi looked doubtful. Xiaoxi, can you really do this? We can just change nurses. Before Yunxi could finish, the needle had already entered my vein cleanly and precisely. As I studied Xiaoxi's confident smile, I asked in surprise, Sister Xiaoxi, have you learned this before? Xiaoxi threw away the disposable gloves and shook her head. No. You've already been stabbed so many times, so I figured I might as well experiment. I stared at her speechlessly. Sister Xiaoxi, how can you say something like that, though? You really are impressive. It's nothing. I just wanted you to get poked fewer times. She glanced at my other arm and asked whether it hurt. I smiled and shook my head. It doesn't hurt. After the blood draw, the remaining examinations went much more smoothly. Xiaoxi said she would take I out to eat. My mother and Yungxi had already left because something urgent had come up at the company. I followed Xiaoxi to a private restaurant she clearly knew well. As I studied the luxurious interior, I unconsciously edged closer to her and asked, is this restaurant also owned by your family? No. Oh, then it's owned by mine? She nodded. A staff member led me to the private room Xiaoxi usually used. I had barely sat down and had not even opened the menu when she smoothly named several dishes. I turned to her in confusion. How do you know I like those dishes? Xiaoxi looked completely natural and smiled gently. If I want to know, naturally I'll know. I went still for a beat and suddenly remembered Gu Shihan. During the year I dated, I knew all of her preferences, yet she often could not remember what I liked to eat. With Xiaoxi as a comparison, I realized that the romantic filter through which I had once viewed Gu Shihan had been far too strong. A lively female voice came through. Sister Xiaoxi, I heard you're back. Come hang out with us. Xiaoxi glanced at me as I ate. I'm not free tonight. What are you busy with? Keeping my fiancé company. Xiaoxi's words made me spit out the soup in my mouth. The other end of the call also fell silent for a moment before a woman shrieked, what the hell? I just heard something. Xiaoxi calmly handed me a tissue. I took it and wiped my mouth while my attention remained on her call. We found him a few days ago. No way, really? Sister Xiaoxi, you're finally going to stop being single. Bring brother-in-law out so we can meet him. No, why not? Sister Xiaoxi, all of us girls want to meet him. Bring him out and hang out with us. No means no. Without waiting for another reply, Xiaoxi ended the call. Then she looked at me. Are you okay? I waved a hand and glanced at her awkwardly. I just choked by accident. It's nothing. Xiaoxi nodded. I know. Since she simply went along with my excuse, I didn't know what else to say. After a moment, I asked curiously, was that your friend? She's also one of your sister's childhood friends. I gave a small nod, then asked, they invited you out. Why aren't you going? Xiaoxi looked at me gently and answered seriously. I already told you. Today I'm keeping my fiancé company. My face instantly turned bright red. Did Sister Xiaoxi really enjoy teasing me this much? After forcing myself to calm down, I studied her. Sister Xiaoxi, you don't have to stay with me. You can go meet your friends. Xiaoxi nodded calmly. Then just think of it as me being the one who wants to cling to you. As I studied her completely serious expression, I felt that the cold, distant persona everyone associated with Xiaoxi had somehow collapsed around me. Was this really the same elegant, aloof woman I had first seen sitting in the back of a Maybach only a few days earlier? After the meal, the two of me returned to the hospital. My mother and Yungxi had come back as well. Yungxi stared blankly at the examination data, then looked at Xiaoxi. Do you understand this? Xiaoxi first shook her head, then nodded. Yungxi became even more confused. Xiaoxi, why are you shaking your head and nodding at the same time? Xiaoxi looked at her as though she were looking at a fool, then took the report and flipped to the last page. Isn't it written right here? Yungxi awkwardly scratched her head and looked at the summary. Yungxi immediately began planning how a nutritionist should help restore my health. After washing up, I arrived at the dining room and saw my mother bustling around. Curious, I asked, Mom, what are you doing? She turned with a smile. Didn't your examination report come out yesterday? Mom is personally making you a nutritious meal. Moved, I stepped forward and hugged her. After breakfast, just as I was about to take a walk in the garden, my sister Yungxi hurried in. Xiaoquan, here. With proper nutrition and exercise together, I believe your health will improve quickly. Knowing all of this came from my family's concern, I didn't refuse. On the first morning of my running routine, I happened to meet Xiaoxi, who was also preparing for a morning run. Seeing her at the gate did not surprise me at all. Sister Xiaoxi, want to run together? Sure, with Xiaoxi beside me. Morning exercise suddenly did not seem so difficult to accept. When I returned from my run, I heard Yunhao's irritated complaints coming from the living room. After listening for a while, I finally understood what was happening. My older brother and sister were arguing over who would accompany I on my morning run the next day. My mother, sitting nearby and calmly drinking coffee, extinguished both of their hopes with a single sentence. If either of you can get up as early as Xiaoji, I won't object. Yunhao and Yunxi looked at each other, then both drooped their heads with expressions of utter despair. Just thinking about their little brother going out for sweet, intimate morning runs with Xiaozi every day made them jealous beyond belief. Who could handle so much work every day and still go to bed early and rise early? Who could work late into the night, still get up in the morning looking perfectly composed for a run? In the blink of an eye, nearly a month had passed since I was brought back to the Yun family. On top of that, both the Yun family and Xiaoxi's family kept sending me all kinds of tonics and health products. My body visibly became much stronger, my facial features also filled out, and my face looked more and more like my mother's when she was young. I grew increasingly handsome. My mother looked at her younger son's healthier, more attractive face and often became emotional. One day at the dining table, my father announced something. Xiao Quan, you've been back for a month? Are you willing? People in their social circle all knew that the Yun family's younger son had been taken away not long after birth and had been missing for more than 20 years. In any case, my identity was supported by the DNA report and could not be questioned. Seeing me remain silent for a while, my mother thought I was unwilling and was about to speak when I gave a small nod. Dad, Mom, you can decide. I'll cooperate with everything. I figured this sort of event was perfectly normal in high society, so I didn't refuse. The banquet was scheduled for 7 days later at the most luxurious Akin Grand Hotel in the capital. Once the date was set, my mother and Yungxi immediately dragged me into an intense shopping spree. I had originally wanted to go shopping quietly with Mom and my sister, but after looking at the two bodyguards beside me, I gave up on the idea of being low-key. My mother and Yungxi, however, were completely accustomed to this. The banquet required formal wear, but after shopping for quite a while, the two women had somehow bought a huge pile of casual clothing instead. Watching their eyes grow brighter and brighter with shopping excitement, I finally could not help interrupting. Mom, sis, did you forget we came out to buy a suit? The two of them froze, clearly having forgotten the original purpose entirely. That did nothing to dampen their enthusiasm. Xiao Quan, come look at this. Do you like it? I walked over helplessly but obediently. After another 2 hours of shopping, my mother and Yungxi finally remembered the actual task. With my mother and Yungxi beside me, I stepped inside. They smiled at me. Xiao Quan, go choose something you like. I gave a small nod and followed a sales associate to browse. I asked the sales associate to take it down and were about to return to my mother and Yungxi to ask their opinion when a somewhat familiar voice suddenly sounded behind me. I frowned and studied him for several long beats before tentatively saying, Kai-kun, is that you? Kai-kun rolled his eyes dramatically and crossed his arms. Who else would it be? We haven't seen each other in all these years, and you're still exactly the same. As he spoke, he looked I up and down. Still dirt poor. Chai-kun had been my high school classmate. Back then, I had been known as the handsome school heartthrob, while Kai-kun was only considered the most attractive boy in my class. Because he was not as handsome as I, he and his group of followers had constantly bullied me, both openly and in secret. I had been afraid of causing trouble for Grandma, so I had always avoided conflict with him. Kai-kun looked at my clothes. Judging by what you're wearing, looks like you still haven't made anything of yourself after all these years. I glanced down at my outfit. I was just about to explain when Sai-kun continued, Do you think a poor bastard like you can afford the suits here? If you damage something, can you afford to pay for it? Apparently, that was not enough for him. He turned toward the sales associate. Can't your store screen its customers before letting them in? He glanced at me again. Don't let every stray cat and dog walk inside. If he ruins the clothes, can he pay for them? The sales associate stood frozen. Seeing both of me remain silent, Kai-kun assumed he had hit the mark and felt a surge of superiority. Pointing at me, he told the employee, "You saw that. Make him pay." Then he threw his half onto the floor and tried to leave. Me stepped forward and grabbed his arm. "We both damaged this suit. You're not going anywhere. Let go of me. Why should I pay? If you hadn't tried to grab it, it wouldn't have torn. If I pay, you pay too." I held tightly enough that he could not shake I off. Unable to escape, Kai-kun began hurling insults at me. Realizing the situation was going badly, the sales associate hurried to the front to get help. My mother and Yunxi were sitting in the rest area drinking coffee while waiting for me. She rushed toward the store manager. "Manager, something's wrong. Young Master Xiaoquan is arguing with another customer." "What?" The manager knew my mother's identity and immediately hurried over with 2 employees. My mother and Yunxi followed right behind. From a distance, they saw me covering one side of my face with my hand as though I had been injured. "Xiaoquan," they rushed toward me. Before I could react, Yunxi pulled my hand away from my face and revealed a bleeding scratch. It was not deep, but the sight of blood instantly changed both women's expressions. My mother pulled me behind her and looked at Kai-kun with displeasure. "Were you the one who hurt my son?" Kai-kun was still stunned. Their clothes had no obvious designer logos either, and since my mother called me her son, he assumed my biological family must be nobody's as well. The fear on his face immediately turned into contempt. "Oh? Weren't you an orphan your grandmother picked up and raised?" He sneered and looked my mother over. "Looks like your real mother is poor too. No wonder she suits you." My gaze turned cold. In 2 sentences, Kai-kun had stepped directly on both of my most sacred boundaries, Grandma and my biological mother. He stared at me in disbelief, trembling with rage. You actually dare hit me," I answered with another slap. Right then, I was like an enraged lion. Even a dog passing by might have been kicked. "You still dare insult them? Looks like I didn't hit you hard enough." Then I sent him flying backward with a hard kick. I rushed forward and struck him repeatedly across the face. "That's for talking about my grandma. That's for insulting me." Kai-kun was pinned to the floor and could barely fight back. His hands clawed wildly as he shouted, "You dare hit me? Do you know who I am? I don't care who you're." The 2 of me ended up wrestling on the floor. My mother and Yunxi stared in shock. My mother was the first to recover and snapped at the manager and employees nearby. "What are you standing there for? If my son loses even a single hair, all of you're finished." It seemed I was finally venting all the anger I had endured during high school, so my strikes had no restraint. Eventually, the manager and staff separated the 2 of me, but I still looked ready to charge Kai-kun again. My mother hurried forward and pulled me into her arms, heartbroken at my disheveled appearance. "Xiaoquan, calm down." I finally regained some reason. Remembering how I had just behaved like a madman in front of my biological mother and sister, I lowered my head guiltily. Yunxi, however, looked at Kai-kun with open hostility. Yunxi walked up and slapped him hard. "You injured my brother's face, didn't you?" Kai-kun was full of rage and answered rudely, "So what if I did?" He never even dared fart in response. Hearing him voluntarily confess that he had bullied me back then, I silently lit a candle for him in my heart. A true warrior, indeed brave enough to incriminate himself. My mother and sister's faces turned icy. Yunxi no longer looked like the gentle big sister I knew. She stepped forward and slapped him again, her aura cold enough to freeze the room. "You dared offend the Yuan family, and were stupid enough not to know it. Who gave you the courage to bully my younger brother?" Kai-kun had been about to keep cursing, but the moment he heard the Yuan family, he froze. Yunxi made a call, summoned the bodyguards waiting outside, and pointed calmly at Kai-kun. "Shut his mouth and take him away." The bodyguards acted immediately, dragging him out despite his struggling. Yunxi let out a breath, then turned back to me wearing the gentle expression of an older sister again. "Little brother, I have something to deal with." With that, she left. My mother had also lost all interest in shopping. She took me to a private hospital owned by the Yuan family for an examination. Only after the doctor confirmed that nothing serious was wrong did she finally relax and bring I home. When my father and brother heard what had happened, they were furious. Who has that much nerve to bully a son of the Yuan family? Right then, Yunxi returned. Guilt flashed in Yunxi's eyes. "Xiaoquan, I'm sorry. I had someone investigate what happened to you in high school." Before she finished, I already understood. Compared with a true elite family like the Yan family, the Kai family merely had a little money. Yet even that money had apparently been obtained through dirty means. My father lowered his face and said, "Cold season's here. Maybe it's time the Kai family experienced a financial winter." That night, I couldn't sleep. Seeing Xiaoxi standing there wearing only thin sleepwear, I pulled her into the room before she could speak. "It's so cold outside. What if you catch a cold?" Watching how anxious I was, Xiaoxi's lips lifted slightly. "Are you worried about me?" "I'm not worried about you, no. I mean, I am worried about you. Anyway, you know what I mean, right?" Watching me stumble over my explanation, Xiaoxi's smile grew wider. "I understand. You're worried about my health." Having my thoughts exposed made me embarrassed. Xiaoxi suddenly raised a hand and gently touched my injured cheek. "Does it hurt?" I noticed the unconscious concern in her voice and foolishly touched the side of my face Kai-kun had struck earlier. Then I deliberately lifted my chin. No, this is nothing. Idiot. Xiaoxi put both hands on her hips and pouted, pretending to be angry. Suddenly there was another knock at the door. Xiaoquan, are you asleep? I instantly covered Xiaoxi's mouth with my hand and called toward the door. What's wrong, brother? I was just about to sleep. Yunhao stood outside in silence for a moment before saying, then get some rest. I'm going back to my room. Okay, brother. Good night. I turned and met Xiaoxi's amused eyes. I pulled it back and scratched my head awkwardly. Sorry. Xiaoxi smiled brightly at me. Are you afraid your brother will find out I'm in your room? Once again she saw straight through I. Eventually I sat up and looked towards Xiaozi's room across the way. Xiaozi was working through company documents when someone gently knocked on the door behind her. The moment Xiaozi saw it, the fatigue in her eyes gradually softened into warmth. You made this especially for me? Although it was phrased as a question, her tone was certain. I placed the bowl on her desk and pulled her into the chair. Work is important, but your health is more important. If you don't like it, tell me what you want to eat, and I'll make that next time. Xiaoxi suddenly stepped forward and hugged me. She took a deep breath, suppressing the surge of emotion in her heart, but still did not let go. Sorry, I couldn't control myself just now. After a moment she continued, Xiaoquan, I'm very happy. I went still then. Became increasingly aware of how intimate the position between me and Xiaoxi felt. I gently created some distance. Hurry and eat. I'm going back to sleep. Then I opened the door to her room. As I studied the steaming late-night meal on the desk, a slow smile appeared on her lips. The next morning, while the Yun family was eating breakfast, Xiaoxi walked in carrying the clean bowl and chopsticks. I stared at her in surprise. Sister Xiaoxi, did you bring your own dishes over just to freeload breakfast? Xiaoxi ignored my teasing and looked directly at me. I came to thank you for last night's noodles. When I heard that I had made Xiaoxi a midnight snack, the two women in my family became terribly jealous. That evening, I followed my father to the Aikun Hotel, a property owned by the Yan family. Xiaoxi had even prepared a luxurious private lounge for me. Soon, a bodyguard came to inform I that the banquet was about to begin. My father took me and my older brother toward the ballroom. On the way, I felt uncomfortable and needed the restroom, so my father and brother went ahead to the banquet hall. The moment he saw me there, his eyes nearly popped out. Xiaoquan, why are you here? I recognized Shi Hao, the man who had been sitting beside Gu Shihen in the private room at the bar. If he was at the banquet, I suspected Gu Shihen would appear too. He recognized the suit I was wearing as a top-tier bespoke label the kind money alone could not easily buy. His immediate assumption was that I had attached myself to a wealthy woman. Xiaoquan, I didn't expect that after only a month you'd already found such a rich benefactor. Looks like your sugar mommy treats you pretty well. My gaze turned cold. I advise you to watch your mouth. Before I even finished speaking, Shi Hao suddenly shoved me. I tried to walk around him, but when I raised my head, I unexpectedly locked eyes with Gu Shihan, who had appeared at some point. The instant she saw me, undisguised delight filled her eyes. Xiaoquan, I finally found you. I withdrew my gaze coldly. Sorry, miss. I'm not the Xiaoquan you're talking about. I moved to pass her, but as my shoulders crossed, Gu Shihan grabbed my hand tightly. No, Xiaoquan, I could never mistake you. You're my Xiaoquan. As I studied, her deliberate display of affection made me feel disgusted and irritated. Shi Hao glared at me viciously. Xiaoquan, you're still trying to seduce Shihan. He stepped forward with a clenched fist and swung at me. I dodged nimbly to the side. Which eye of yours saw me seducing Gu Shihan? I only hope both of you stay as far away from me as possible. My words left Gu Shihan frozen. She stared at me in disbelief. Xiaoquan, don't call me Xiaoquan. Gu Shihan, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. It makes me sick. The intense disgust in my eyes wounded her deeply, and she staggered backward 2 steps. I ignored her and turned toward Shi Hao. Control your woman, and I don't eat grass I've already left behind. Taking advantage of the two of them being stunned, I walked away. Looking down, I met Xiaoji's beautiful eyes. Sister Xiaoji, why are you here? She glanced at me. Your clothes are dirty. Her tone was cool. A faint blush appeared on her face as she praised me. Not bad. Still very handsome. I wasn't used to wearing clothes like this, but in front of Xiaoxi, without thinking, I straightened my chest. Of course. Xiaoxi narrowed her eyes and smiled. Xiaoxi whispered, don't be nervous. Just pretend they're background NPCs. Fancy suits, expensive watches, 0 dialogue options. I almost burst out laughing. The first dance of the evening was performed by me and Xiaoxi together. I led Xiaoxi beneath it as elegant music began to play. After a perfect closing pose, the lights came back on. My father took the microphone. The purpose of tonight's banquet is to announce to everyone that the Yun family's younger son has returned. He looked at me warmly. I stepped forward and stood beside him. Xiaoquan is our Yun family's biological son who was lost outside the family. Starting today, he is officially returning to the Yun family. After that, my father led me through the banquet and introduced I to the guests. Suddenly, Xiaoxi walked over. Uncle Yun, may I borrow Xiaoquan for a little while? My father's gaze fell on me. Then he smiled. Of course. Xiaoxi nodded lightly. Xiaoxi told me to sit while she went to see what food looked good. Without warning, an irritating voice sounded beside my ear. Xiaoquan, what is your relationship with her? I turned and, sure enough, saw Gu Shihan. I gave him a look. What does it have to do with you? Gu Shihan, we're already over. Her eyes were red as she looked at me, with an emotion I couldn't understand. Xiao Quan, as long as you're willing to get back together with me, I'll immediately abort Shihao's child. When I heard that, I couldn't stop myself from letting out a cold laugh. Gu Shihan, the thing I regret most in this life is ever dating you. Her eyes went empty and she looked wounded. I was also worried that Xiaoxi might come back and misunderstand, so I moved to leave. Behind me, Gu Shihan suddenly said, Xiao Quan, do you know who that woman with you is? She's the eldest young lady of the Yan family. What makes you think you can be with the Yan family's eldest daughter? My expression did not change. Apparently, Gu Shihan had missed the part of the banquet where my father announced my identity. I turned back. So, Gu Shihan, what exactly are you trying to say? Hope grew brighter in her eyes. Xiao Quan, leave Xiaoxi and come back to me, okay? I studied her calmly. Gu Shihan, in your eyes, what are Shihao and I? Xiao Quan, you're obviously the person I love most. Gu Shihan, stop lying to yourself. From the beginning, you never truly respected me. The light in her eyes gradually dimmed. Xiao Quan, what do you mean? My voice remained calm and my expression blank. You said you dated me because you wanted to test whether my feelings were genuine. But did you ever truly take our relationship seriously? But what about you? The more I spoke, the paler her face became. I studied her expressionlessly. Treat Shihao well. He genuinely loves you. Xiao Quan, but I still love you. But I don't love you anymore. I don't love you now, and I never will again. I stepped a little closer to Gu Shihan, my gaze cold. The moment you treated my grandmother's life-saving money like a joke and spent it, there was never going to be a future for us again. Stop appearing in front of me. The final trace of light in Gu Shihan's eyes died completely. I'd already turned away and walked toward Xiaoxi, who was returning with a plate of cake. Xiaoxi raised her eyes and glanced calmly toward the place where Gu Shihan had been standing, then looked at me. Why did you come out here? I answered vaguely. I was hungry, and the air over there wasn't very good. Let's sit somewhere else. Okay, let's go. After finding another place to sit, Xiaoxi looked at me with a gentle smile. You met her. My hand paused while eating cake. Then I gave a sheepish smile. I was waiting for you. From now on, even if I meet her on the street, I'll treat her like a complete stranger. Good. Xiaoxi lowered her head and started eating her small cake. Xiaoxi never interrogated I excessively or pushed too far. She always knew when to advance and when to stop, and being around her felt comfortable. Sister Xiaoxi, you're so outstanding. Have you ever dated anyone? As I asked, I didn't dare meet her eyes. I swallowed nervously, but Xiaoxi still did not answer. Unable to resist, I turned to look at her and found her smiling at me. If you're willing, I don't mind giving you my first love. Flustered, I lowered my head and took a bite of cake to hide my expression. Knowing that I was the first person Xiaoxi had ever liked made me far happier than I expected. Me still did not explicitly agree to date her, and Xiaoxi did not press I further. I never ran into Gu Shihan again, nor did I see Shihao. But after attending 2 outings, I no longer wanted to leave home for those gatherings. One day, the rest of the family came home from work just as I walked out of the kitchen. Dad, you're back. Wash your hands and come eat. The moment my father heard I had personally cooked, he became so delighted he almost did not know what to do with himself. Gradually, they noticed that I was being unusually enthusiastic. My mother put down her chopsticks and smiled gently. Xiao Quan, is there something you want to tell us? The moment she said it, the other 3 also put down their chopsticks and looked at me curiously. I went still, then slowly set mine down too. Is it really that obvious? All 4 of them nodded in unison. Since my little scheme had been seen through anyway, I simply spoke directly. Dad, Mom, brother, sis, I want to discuss something with you. Watching how serious my expression was, the 4 of them became serious as well. I want to go out and get a job. Is that okay? The dining room became so quiet I could hear a pin drop. After a long moment, my father exhaled in relief. I thought you were going to say something terrible. Xiao Quan, tomorrow you can. No, Dad. I don't want to work at our family's company. My father froze. Then what do you mean? I want to rely on myself and start as an ordinary entry-level employee. The 4 members of my family looked at one another and fell silent. My father considered it carefully before saying, Xiao Quan, if you don't want to work for Dad or your brother, how about this? Dad can find another company for you, and you can work there. Would that be okay? I knew he meant well, but I still declined tactfully. I knew they did not want to see me work too hard, but I also knew my own level. I didn't want people laughing behind my back later and saying, look at that Yuan family young master. He has no ability and can only rely on his family. That was why I wanted to stay away from the Yuan family's own companies. Suddenly, my father changed direction. Xiao Quan, why don't you work at Xiaoxi's company? You can still start from the bottom if you want. I never expected him to agree to let me avoid the Yuan family business. Still, working for Xiaoxi did not feel all that different. Seeing my hesitation, my mother spoke. Mom watched Xiaoxi grow up. It's a good thing that you want to train yourself, and her company is actually a suitable place. Seeing me waver, Youngsi joined in persuading me. I planned to join Xiaoxi's company after the new year. Late that night, Xiaoxi knocked on the door of my study. Smiling, I opened the door. Come in. Why are you still wearing so little? As I studied the thin sleep robe she wore, a trace of reproach entered my voice. The corners of Xiaoxi's lips rose. Aunt Lin told me. Told you what? That you're joining my company after the new year? I understood and felt a little embarrassed. You don't have to give me any special treatment. I'll follow all the company's rules and procedures. Xiao Shi looked at me without speaking. After a long while, she finally said, "Okay, I won't treat you specially." Hearing her promise, I relaxed. "So you came to see me this late just to talk about that?" "No, that was only incidental." My heart stirred, though my face pretended not to care. "Oh, I see." Xiao Shi stepped closer until her face was near mine. "What? You don't want to see me?" "No, if you want to see me, isn't it easy anytime?" "You're right." After saying that, the two of me suddenly fell silent. A long time passed before Xiao Shi spoke again. "It's the end of the year. I may be quite busy for a while. You've worked hard." There was a faint smile in her eyes. "Then can you give me a hug?" I went still. As I studied Xiao Xi's beautiful smiling face, I heard her add, "If you hug me, maybe I won't feel so tired." Almost the instant she finished speaking, I pulled her into my arms. I deliberately kept my voice as normal as possible. "Like this?" A soft laugh sounded against my chest. "Xiaoquan, why do you listen to me so obediently?" I muttered. "Weren't you the one who asked for a hug?" I was the one who asked." Xiao Xi did not linger on the subject. She gently pulled back and changed topics. "After I finish this busy period, shall we go soak in hot springs?" My eyes immediately lit up at the words hot springs, and I studied her with obvious anticipation. Xiao Xi smiled at my reaction, then seemed to remember something. "By the way, my younger brother is coming back from abroad in the next couple of days. He says he wants to meet you." I knew Xiao Xi had a younger brother studying overseas. When I heard that he wanted to meet, I made me unexpectedly nervous. Should I prepare a gift for him? Xiao Xi looked amused. "You don't need to prepare anything special. How can I not? Shouldn't I get along well with him?" The second I realized what my own words implied, I fell silent and secretly glanced at Xiao Xi. She was smiling at me with obvious amusement. "You're right. Building a good relationship with your future brother-in-law is very necessary. Xiaoquan, you really think far ahead." Her eyes curved happily. "It's late, and you still have work tomorrow. Hurry back and sleep." I began ushering her toward the door. Seeing my embarrassed expression, Xiao Xi quickly kissed my cheek. "Good night, my little fiancé." Then she left in an excellent mood. Although Xiao Xi had said not to prepare anything special for her younger brother, I still went out. Smiling at the clerk, I said, "Could you take that one out and let me see it?" "Of course. Please wait a moment." The clerk put on gloves and carefully removed the watch from the display case, placing it on the presentation tray in front of me. Seeing the gloves, I casually asked, "Can I pick it up with my bare hands and look at it?" "Of course." Another employee suddenly spoke in a sarcastic tone. "I advise you not to. If you dirty it, can you compensate us?" Just then, a young man dressed head to toe in designer brands walked into the store. The sarcastic employee's eyes immediately lit up and she rushed over to greet him. "Sir, what would you like to buy?" The young man removed his sunglasses and looked around. "Bring out all your newest watches. I'm planning to give one as a gift." Of course. Of course. "Please wait a moment." I withdrew my gaze and looked back at the clerk in front of me. "Then I'll pick this up and look at it." "Don't worry, I won't dirty it." The clerk smiled. "Of course, sir. Please feel free." The employee who had mocked I happened to pass by and rolled her eyes dramatically. While I was looking at it, the young man who had entered earlier happened to notice the watch in my hand. But before he could say anything, the employee serving him suddenly hurried over and snatched the watch directly from my hand. I was immediately displeased, and my voice turned cold. "What are you doing?" The employee held the watch out to the young man with a flattering smile. "Sir, here's the watch you wanted." Yan Yang clearly froze too. As I studied the watch, he frowned. "When did I say I wanted this one?" The store instantly fell silent. The employee had not expected her attempt at flattery to backfire. "I just saw you look at it for a little longer, so I thought." "You thought what?" "Looking at a watch twice doesn't mean I want it. Don't you understand first come, first served?" Yan Yang's response genuinely surprised me. I had expected to run into another Kai-kun, but he instead defended I. Yan Yang walked over. "Sir, I'm sorry about that." I already had a good first impression of him and waved a hand to show I didn't mind. He continued, "Sir, I actually do like this watch. I plan to give it to my future brother-in-law." When I heard that he wanted it as a gift for his future brother-in-law, I gave a small nod. "Sure, I'll choose another one." I went back to browsing the counter while Yan Yang paid. After he was gone, I browsed for a while longer and chose the most expensive watch in the shop. The employee who had looked down on me nearly dropped her eyes out of her head when she saw the black card. Her expression changed instantly, and she hurried forward with a flattering smile. "Sir, let me package it for you." I smiled at her. "This poor bastard doesn't want your service at all. Also, you're fired." During the first half of my sentence, she could still force a stiff smile, but when she heard the second half, her flattery turned to anger. "Who do you think you're? You think you can fire me? Dream on." Her answer made me curious. "Oh, do you have some kind of background?" Pride immediately appeared on her face. "I'm not afraid to tell you. My godmother is the manager of this entire mall." I gave a small nod knowingly and pretended to be frightened, patting my chest while amusement filled my eyes. How terrifying. Turns out she's only the mall manager. With that, I took out my phone and made a call. She rushed over and grabbed the woman's hand. "Godmother, you have to stand up for me. This man says he's going to fire me." The middle-aged woman she called godmother was already sweating heavily and looked desperate to distance herself from the employee. My gaze shifted to the middle-aged man. "Manager, hello." He immediately hurried to my side. "Young Master Xiaoquan, what can I do for you? Seeing the mall's senior manager treat I with such deference made the overweight woman's forehead sweat even more. I smiled. Manager, for the sake of the mall's image, shouldn't employees like this be dismissed? I glanced toward the woman and the clerk. She shoved the employee away and hurried up to me with a pleading smile. Young Master Xiaoquan, if you want to fire this employee, by all means fire her. I have elderly parents and young children at home. I studied her coldly. He turned toward the employee and said, without emotion, you're fired. You can get out now. I picked up the package watch and left. The second I entered, the butler hurried over. Second, young master, you're back. Is something wrong? Madam has already returned, and young master Yan Yang from the Yan family is here as well. I went still briefly, then realized Yan Yang must be Xiaoxi's younger brother. Before I even entered the living room, I could hear lively laughter from inside. Me quickened my steps. Mom, I'm back. Everyone seated in the living room turned toward me at once. I also saw Yan Yang sitting on the sofa. It's you. Yan Yang stood up. You're the Yun family's younger son who was lost for 20 years? I gave a small nod. Yan Yang suddenly threw an arm around my shoulders. So you're my future brother-in-law. I was just regretting that I couldn't introduce a high-quality, handsome guy like you to my sister. His enthusiasm left me unsure how to respond. Right then, Xiaoxi pulled Yan Yang away. Yan Yang, you're scaring him. Xiaoxi pulled me over beside her. Yan Yang grinned. Brother-in-law, look at the cheap little gift I found for you. The word brother-in-law made me a little embarrassed, but Xiaoxi was clearly delighted, the corners of her lips lifting. Yan Yang took out the watch from earlier and handed it to me. Who would have thought this watch would still end up with brother-in-law in the end? I also handed him the gift I had selected. I hope you like this too. Yan Yang opened the box. The instant he saw the watch, his eyes lit up. Brother-in-law, your taste is amazing. I think my sister doesn't deserve Brother Quan at all. If I were you. Before Yan Yang could finish, Xiaoxi covered his mouth. She glared at him in warning. Shut up, Yang Yang. I'm warning you. Don't talk nonsense to your brother-in-law. Yang Yang looked back and forth between the two of me. Sis, are you really afraid Brother Quan will decide he doesn't want you? I wanted to explain, but Yang Yang looked at me with an expression that said, don't bother, I understand everything. My mother had known Yan Yang was coming back today, so she had prepared dinner in advance. Yan Yang picked up a piece of lobster and was about to put it into my bowl when Xiaoxi stopped him. Xiaoquan is allergic to seafood. He can't eat it. The moment Yan Yang heard that, he immediately pulled his chopsticks back. Sorry, Brother Quan, I didn't know. I replied, it's fine. You didn't know? My mother looked surprised. She had not expected Xiaoxi to know about my seafood allergy. Even my own family had only learned because I mentioned it once while eating seafood together. Near the end of the meal, Xiaoxi proposed that everyone go to a hot spring resort after the new year. Yan Yang became very excited. He had not soaked in hot springs in a long time. Lying on the bed, he suddenly asked, Brother Quan, how do you feel about my sister? I never expected him to be so direct, but I thought seriously before answering. She's beautiful, has a great figure, comes from a good family, and has a good personality too. Good personality? Yan Yang looked astonished. Are you sure? You're talking about my sister? Yes. Why? The corner of Yan Yang's mouth twitched. How had her biological younger brother never noticed? Nothing, Brother Quan. Keep going. I continued talking about what I thought of Xiaoxi. After listening, Yan Yang gained a completely new understanding of his own sister. Then he told me stories about Xiaoxi as well. Through him, I learned about another side of her. The Xiaoxi who was cold, rarely smiled, and had been exceptionally capable since childhood, outperforming almost everyone her age. On Lunar New Year's Eve, the Yan and Yun families gathered together, except for Xiaoxi, who had suddenly been sent abroad on an urgent assignment. The parents of both families stayed together talking, while I, Yunhao, Yungxi, and Yan Yang sat on the balcony playing Do Dizu. After losing more than 10 rounds in a row, Yan Yang threw down his cards and complained shamelessly. I'm done. If my sister were here, I definitely wouldn't be this miserable. I wasn't especially fond of such noisy games, so I sat to one side scrolling through videos. I lowered my gaze and discovered Xiaoxi was calling. I glanced at the three people still absorbed in their card game, then quietly took my phone out into the courtyard. Hello? Xiaoquan. I'm here. What are you doing? I glanced back toward the living room, where Yan Yang, my brother, and my sister were still playing cards. The other end of the call fell silent briefly before Xiaoxi's soft, pleasant voice sounded again. Xiaoquan, do you miss me? Before I could answer, she spoke first. I miss you. I opened my mouth, then asked, when are you coming back? I wasn't sure whether it was my imagination, but I seemed to hear footsteps on the other end. The next second, her lovely voice sounded again. Xiaoquan, look up. Without thinking, I raised my head. Without hesitation, I ran toward her and pulled her into my arms. Sister Xiaoxi, why are you back? Xiaoxi hugged me more tightly, then answered seriously. I missed you, so I came back. My body stiffened. Xiaoxi seemed to notice my discomfort, but instead of releasing she hugged me even tighter. I paused, then asked, Sister Xiaoxi, are you very tired? A little. Let me hold you for a while. My heart softened instantly. I gently patted her back. Okay, why did you suddenly return? Xiaoxi laughed softly. Of course, I didn't want my Xiao Quan to be disappointed, so I hurried to finish the work and rushed back. Are you happy to see me? Hearing how certain and even slightly smug she sounded, I wanted to say stubbornly that I wasn't happy, but what came out instead was, a little happy. Xiaoxi raised an eyebrow. Oh, only a little? I had no idea how long the two of me remained hugging in the courtyard. Only when I felt Xiaoxi's body shiver slightly did I belatedly realize her clothes were thin. Sister Xiaoxi, let's go inside. I took her hand and led her into the living room. Yan Yang immediately rushed over and shoved his cards into Xiaoxi's hands. Sis, save me. Help me. Yunxi raised an eyebrow at Xiaoxi. How about it? Play a couple rounds? Xiaoxi sat down casually. The cards were shuffled, dealt again while I and Yan Yang watched from the side. One thing he had said was correct. If Xiaoxi were here, he would not have lost so miserably all night. Once Xiaoxi replaced him at the table, the person who kept losing became Yunxi. After an entire evening of defeat, Yan Yang finally recovered some pride through his sister and looked unbearably smug. Suddenly, I leaned toward Xiaoxi. Sister Xiaoxi, want to see fireworks? Her eyes lit up. I and Xiaoxi stood in the center of the courtyard while the other three watched silently from behind. As the final second of the New Year's countdown reached midnight, brilliant fireworks bloomed one after another across the sky. Xiaoxi turned toward me with delight. Xiaoquan, did you arrange this? I studied her happy smile and grinned. Do you like it? I do. Thank you, Xiaoquan. Happy New Year, Sister Xiaoxi. Happy New Year, Xiaoquan. The next afternoon when I came downstairs, I saw only my older brother playing with his phone. My sister was nowhere to be seen. Curious, I asked, Brother, where's sis? Xiaoquan, you're awake. Your sister went next door to the Yan house. What for? Yunhao had not yet had time to explain when noisy voices sounded from the entrance, accompanied by footsteps growing closer. Yunxi's voice came first. When you meet my little brother, behave yourself. Don't scare him. An unfamiliar voice answered. Fine, fine, I'll calm down. Sister Xiaoxi kept hiding him from us and wouldn't let us come. So stingy. I looked curiously toward the doorway. A cute-looking girl who seemed immediately friendly spoke first. This must be brother-in-law, right? Hi, I'm Li Xia, Sister Xiaoxi's best friend. I went still for a beat. Hello, I'm Xiaoquan. Beside Li Xia stood a girl with a scholarly air. Hello, brother-in-law. I'm Xiao Rongyu, also Sister Xiaoxi's close friend. Hello. The last unfamiliar face belonged to a cool-looking woman. Hello, future brother-in-law. I'm Xia Wen. Hello. Li Xia smiled brightly. We heard long ago that Sister Yunxi's younger brother had been found and wanted to come see you. But Sister Xiaoxi and Sister Yunxi refused to let us. We finally got a chance recently. Yunxi glared at Li Xia. Li Xia suddenly slapped her forehead and pulled a small cloth pouch from her pocket. Brother-in-law, I almost forgot your greeting gift. I accepted it and opened the pouch. Li Xia waved casually. Brother-in-law, if you like diamonds, I have more. I waved my hands. This is already more than I could ever use. A trace of regret crossed her face, but she quickly asked, Brother-in-law, do you like gold? I have that too. Yunxi smacked the back of Li Xia's head. Do you think our family can't afford those things? Li Xia laughed and rubbed her head without getting angry. I just want to leave a good impression on brother-in-law. The group laughed and chatted noisily. 2 days later, I packed a couple of simple outfits and left with my older brother and sister for the hot spring resort. The moment Xiaoxi got into the car, she opened her laptop and started handling work. Being the president of a huge company clearly was not something anyone could do casually. After a short rest, Yan Yang and Yunhao could no longer wait and dragged me off to the men's hot spring. After soaking, I came out and ran into Xiaoxi in the hallway. Seeing her wrapped in a bathrobe, I unconsciously swallowed. You finished too? Xiaoxi calmly withdrew her gaze from me. Are you going back to your room? I want to change clothes. I was going back too. Let's walk together. The two of me moved side by side down the corridor. Xiaoxi glanced back and pulled me slightly toward her to make space. Because Xiaoxi tugged unexpectedly, I lost my balance and accidentally pressed one hand against her chest. Xiaoxi released and spoke in a slightly shy voice. Let's go. I had barely regained my footing when a child who appeared from nowhere bumped hard into Xiaoxi from behind. Frowning, I crouched in front of her and gently touched her ankle. Did you twist it? Does it hurt? I supported Xiaoxi as I moved forward. Since I didn't have my own room card with me, I went directly to Xiaoxi's room. I helped Xiaoxi onto the bed, then crouched beside it and gently held her ankle. She seemed embarrassed and instinctively tried to pull her foot back, but I caught it firmly. Don't move. Let me check. I'm really fine. It doesn't hurt. Really? I studied her with amusement, and the tips of Xiaoxi's ears turned red. Xiaoxi felt warmth spread through the injury as the pain gradually eased. She lowered her head and watched me focus on treating her, sweetness rising in her heart. I started to say something in embarrassment when I felt warmth on my lips. My mind exploded. Xiaoxi came back to her senses and instantly flushed. Sorry. My head was a complete mess. My first kiss was gone just like that. Seeing me remain silent for so long, Xiaoxi assumed I was angry. She lowered her head and said dejectedly, I'm sorry. Just now, it's okay. You don't need to apologize. Specks of light appeared in her eyes. You're not angry? I replied awkwardly. Why would I be angry? A rare moment of blankness crossed Xiaoxi's face, then her eyes grew brighter and brighter. Then when you're ready, can I kiss you again? I didn't dare meet the gaze of the woman who was clearly teasing me. Xiaoxi cupped my face. Xiao Quan, answer me. I really need your answer. The word kiss sounded beside my ear in her low, alluring voice. My Adam's apple moved twice. Xiaoxi smiled, radiant as flowers in full bloom. Are you ready now? I want to kiss you. I reached out and pushed away the face leaning closer. No, Xiaoxi looked slightly annoyed, but I smiled. This time, let me do it. Then, before I could actually act on my words, I turned and hurried into the bathroom, taking a long breath and trying to calm the chaos in my chest. If I stayed too close to Xiaoxi, something might really happen. When I came back out, Xiaoxi was sitting at the bedside, working on her laptop. Yunhao still had not returned, and I didn't have my room card, so I simply made myself comfortable on the sofa. After Xiaoxi finished her work, she looked up and saw me sleeping. Xiaoxi thought I had awakened, but when she looked back, my eyes were still closed. Then Xiaoxi's voice came from outside the door. Xiao Quan, are you awake? Take them, change, and come out to eat something. After changing, I walked out and immediately smelled food. Xiaoxi lifted her head from the laptop in front of her and smiled. Come eat something. I gave a small nod and sat at the table. Seeing her get up and join I asked, you haven't eaten either? I slept for a while just now. I had subconsciously assumed Xiaoxi had rested on the bed. I asked curiously, what's wrong? Did you sleep uncomfortably? The corner of her lips lifted. What about you? Did you sleep well? Pretty well, though I think there were mosquitoes. Xiaoxi raised an eyebrow. Mosquitoes? When I changed clothes just now, I noticed a few little red mosquito bites on my neck. Maybe I got bitten last night. I waved it off casually, never once suspecting Xiaoxi, and completely failed to notice the meaningful smile on her face. Suddenly, someone knocked. Brother? Why aren't you two asleep yet? I stepped aside to let them in. Yan Yang immediately teased, brother-in-law, you're not asleep either. Something about the way he said it sounded suggestive. Then I remembered that Yunhao had brought clothes for me earlier and immediately realized they both knew I had fallen asleep in Xiaoxi's room. I just literally fell asleep in Sister Xiaoxi's room, that's all. Yunhao and Yan Yang repeated in unison. You just slept there, purely slept. Seeing their disbelieving faces, I insisted. Really, I just fell asleep. Okay, we believe you. Besides, you and Xiaoxi are going to end up together eventually. I wanted to argue but did not know what to say. Yunhao put an arm around me. Okay, want something to drink? I actually were a little thirsty. Drink what? Yunhao and Yan Yang exchanged a smile and brought me to the small bar on the 8th floor. When Yangxi saw me arrive, she hurried over. Xiao Quan, are you okay? I looked confused. Sis, I'm fine. Li Xia stood behind the bar with a cocktail shaker in hand. Brother-in-law, what do you want? I studied all the bright red and green liquids. Give me something low alcohol. I rarely drink. Li Xia flashed a big white grin. Got it. Then she began mixing the drink with practiced skill, deliberately performing several difficult tricks. A blue gradient cocktail was finally pushed toward me. Brother-in-law, try it. The alcohol content is low. I lifted the glass, smelled it first, then drank the entire thing in one go. Xiaoxi had finished showering and came out intending to have a couple drinks herself. She strode over quickly. Xiao Quan. When I gave no response, she turned toward Li Xia. What happened? Li Xia awkwardly rubbed her head. Sister Xiaoxi, I really didn't know brother-in-law had such a terrible alcohol tolerance. Xiaoxi looked at the dozen glasses on the bar. Did he drink all of those? Li Xia immediately shook her head. Xiaoxi's voice turned colder. How much did he drink? Li Xia slowly raised one finger. Xiaoxi's expression worsened. 10 glasses? No, 1 glass. Xiaoxi froze, almost wondering if she had heard incorrectly. 1 glass, and he's like this? It was not only Xiaoqi. Everyone who had witnessed the entire process was shocked. Xiaoqi frowned. Then why didn't you take him back to his room? Why leave him lying here? She reached out to help I up. Li Xia hurriedly tried to stop her. Sister Xiaoxi, don't. But the expected disaster did not happen. Li Xia quietly withdrew her hand. That shouldn't be possible. Then a voice full of resentment came from nearby. Why can you touch him when I can't? Xiaoxi turned and saw Yungxi sitting on a sofa. She looked puzzled. Yungxi, what happened to your face? The others who had been trying desperately not to laugh finally lost control and burst out laughing. It turned out Yungxi had previously tried to carry I back to my room. What none of them had expected was that Xiaoxi could approach I, touch I, and support I without any problem. Yungxi stretched out an arm. Xiaoxi, give me my little brother. I'll take him back. Xiaoxi looked at her, then at me, sleeping peacefully with my eyes closed. Yungxi's smile had barely begun to form when I slapped her across the face again. The second I opened my eyes, I saw Xiaoxi. My gaze focused on her smiling face, and I smiled too. I stood, reached out, and cupped both her cheeks. Sister Xiaoxi, you're so pretty. The smile on her face became even gentler. Xiao Quan, I'll take you. Before she could finish, I kissed her attractive red lips. Xiaoxi finally pulled away and, despite the flush on her lips, said calmly, I'll take Xiao Quan back to his room. Without giving anyone a chance to say anything, Xiaoxi supported me out of the bar. Remembering the kiss just now, the corner of her mouth lifted as her gaze fell on my lips. Xiaoxi came back to her senses and was about to sit up when I shifted forward. My lips touched again. She closed her eyes and actively kissed me. Then I saw Xiaoxi appear, dressed in flowing white like an immortal fairy. My eyes went wide. but suddenly another person appeared and tried to pull Xiaoxi out of my arms. Seeing them fly dozens of meters away filled I with satisfaction, and I turned back and kissed Xiaoxi again. Then Xiaoxi's voice sounded beside my ear. Xiaoquan, breathe. I opened my eyes in a drunken blur, and seemed to see Xiaoxi very close to me. Xiaoxi had gotten carried away herself and only realized afterward that I had fallen asleep. Xiaoxi got out of bed, tucked the blanket around me, then turned and left the room. It was Yungxi and the others, who had clearly been eavesdropping outside. Yungxi's gaze immediately landed on Xiaoxi's visibly red lips. Well, Xiaoxi, you secretly kissed my little brother. Xiaoxi looked calm, though a blush spread across her face. Xiaoquan kissed me first. Yungxi became even angrier. Xiaoxi, I didn't know you were this kind of person. You took advantage of him while he was drunk. Embarrassment flashed across Xiaoxi's face. Don't talk nonsense. I didn't. Yunhao was worried their noise would wake I and immediately said, Yan Yang and I will stay and look after Xiaoquan tonight. Just don't stay here. With that, he shut the door. Yunxi glared at Xiaoxi. Come on, drink with me. Xiaoxi shrugged and nodded. By the end of that night, there was only 1.5 sober people left in the little bar. Xia Wen was the one, and Xiaoxi was the half. After sending the 3 drunk people back to their rooms, Xia Wen accompanied Xiaoxi to hers. At the door, Xiaoxi turned around, her face still flushed from drinking. Xia Wen smiled. I'm really happy to see that you've found your destined person, Xiaoxi. You've to be happy. Xiaoxi smiled back. I will, and you'll find your own happiness too. When I woke early the next morning, my head throbbed painfully. I struggled upright and saw Yunhao and Yan Yang asleep beside me. I studied the 2 sleeping men. At least I hadn't hit Yunhao or Yan Yang. Suddenly, the dream came back, including the part where I had actively kissed Xiaoxi. Wait, I didn't actually kiss Sister Xiaoxi, did I? Brother Quan, what are you muttering about? I turned and met Yan Yang's sleepy eyes. Feeling guilty, I answered, nothing. Go back to sleep. Yan Yang did not argue and actually dropped his head back down to sleep. The image of kissing Xiaoxi surged back into my head. Had I really kissed her? Once Yunhao and Yan Yang woke, my doubts were confirmed, but not only that. What? And I hit my own sister. I went still. Yunhao and Yan Yang immediately remembered the previous night's events and burst out laughing. Yunhao put an arm around my shoulders. Don't worry. Yungxi won't blame you. Even though both men reassured I still felt guilty. I decided to cook something for Yungxi as an apology. Just as I wondered where everyone was, Si Wen walked out of her room. Are you looking for Yungxi and the others? They're probably still sleeping. Drank too much? How much did they drink last night? Embarrassment crossed Xia Wen's face. She scratched her head. Not that much, probably. Obviously no one would believe that. Seeing me frown, she hesitated, then explained, Yungxi was a little bothered about you and Xiaoxi, so she dragged Xiaoxi into drinking all night. Worried, I hurried downstairs and bought hangover soup for everyone. I knocked on the door. Sis, are you awake? I listened carefully for movement inside, but the room's soundproofing was so good I could hear nothing. Yungxi's face was still swollen and she had clearly just awakened. Seeing her like that finally convinced me that I really had hit my biological sister. Sis, I'm sorry. Yungxi's mind went blank for a moment. Then she remembered I drunkenly clinging to Xiaoxi and even kissing her on my own initiative, and her face immediately darkened. I sharply noticed her bad mood and awkwardly said, Sis, I really am sorry. I didn't know I'd hit you that hard. Seeing me lower my head to apologize, Yunxi did not dwell on it. Forget it, but from now on, can we please stay away from alcohol? I gave a small nod. With a tolerance of 1 drink, even I agreed that was wise. Right, sis? Drink this hangover soup and eat something so your stomach isn't empty. Yungxi's face brightened and she was just about to step aside and let me in when Yan Yang's voice suddenly rang down the hall. Something's wrong. My sister is sick. The second I heard something had happened to Xiaoxi, I shoved the hangover soup into Yungxi's arms, threw out, I'm going to check on her, and ran off. Yungxi stared blankly at the things in her hands, then at my retreating back. The smile on her face froze as I charged directly into Xiaoxi's room. I found Xiaoxi half reclining against the headboard, her face unnaturally flushed. Seeing me, the corner of her mouth lifted. Why are you here? Yan Yang said something happened to you, so I came to check. Xiaoxi glanced at me, then at Yan Yang standing nearby with an expression that clearly said he wanted to watch the drama. She said gently, it's nothing. Just a small cold. I reached out and touched Xiaoxi's forehead. Seeing the worry on my face, she softly reassured I'm fine, don't worry. I frowned without answering. I said, get up, we're going to the hospital. Xiaoxi lightly refused. There's no need. I'll take some medicine and be fine. Seeing her care so little about her own health made me angry. Sister Xiaoxi, do you really care that little about your own body? It was the first time I had ever gotten angry at Xiaoxi. As I studied my contradictory behavior, she coaxed, don't be angry, okay? I touched her head. Then who told you not to go to the hospital? Xiaoxi acted spoiled. Come on, I'm really fine. If I take medicine and rest, I'll definitely recover. Seeing her behaving so softly, I couldn't resist, gently stroking her head again. Just then, Yan Yang returned with a doctor. The doctor's here. The doctor's here. The doctor came to the bedside. I intended to make room, but Xiaoxi directly grabbed my hand. The moment Xiaoxi heard injection, her brows furrowed. When I saw that reaction, I gave her no chance to refuse. Fine, we'll do the shot. The doctor still looked at Xiaoxi for confirmation. When I saw that Xiaoxi still had not let go of me, I said, Sister Xiaoxi, let go of my hand. She smiled but did not release. Sister Xiaoxi, let go. Xiaoxi asked innocently, why? I rubbed the back of my neck in embarrassment. If you're getting an injection, isn't it awkward for me to sit here? Don't you have to take your pants down for a shot? The doctor prepared the syringe, rolled up Xiaoxi's sleeve, and injected her upper arm. Just before going, he could not resist adding, actually, fever-reducing injections don't have to be given in the buttocks. Then he fled quickly, leaving me sitting beside the bed in total embarrassment. I wanted to leave, but Xiaoxi was still holding my wrist. After a while, I finally asked the woman staring continuously at me, do you feel better after the shot? She still seemed uncomfortable, her delicate brows furrowed. I felt her temperature rising again and became worried. Your clothes are soaked with sweat. Do you need to change? Xiaoxi glanced at me, her beautiful eyes glittering. My arm has no strength after the shot. I'll help you change. The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. I brought out a basin of warm water. Where are your clothes? In the wardrobe. I took clean clothing from the wardrobe. After that, I kept my back turned towards Xiaoxi, waiting for her to change by herself. Curious, I turned. Aren't you going to change? My arm has no strength. I hesitated for several seconds and sat beside her, reaching toward the buttons of her sleepwear. Then I thought better of it. How about I call one of your friends to help you change? Xiaoxi immediately looked disappointed. My arm suddenly seems to have strength again. I'll change myself. So I turned and walked toward my own room. With no sign of Yang Yang in the hallway, I thought Xiaoxi probably had not eaten anything. After washing up briefly, Xiaoxi lay quietly in bed. Xiaoxi half reclined against the headboard and smiled at me. I thought Xiao Quan had decided he didn't want me anymore. I just went to find something for you to eat. You probably haven't eaten, right? But I don't have an appetite. I studied the millet porridge I had prepared. How about just a little? Xiaoxi said nothing and only stared directly at me. After hesitating, I offered, then, I'll feed you. The corner of Xiaoxi's mouth immediately lifted. Then I'll have to trouble our Xiao Quan. I sat in the chair beside the bed, picked up the bowl of millet porridge, scooped a spoonful, blew on it gently, and brought it to her lips. Bite by bite, the bowl was soon empty. Want a little more? Xiaoxi gently shook her head. Setting the empty bowl aside, I stood and touched her forehead. Sleep for a while. I noticed you look sleepy just now. If I fall asleep, are you going to leave? I went still. Seeing my hesitation, Xiaoxi lowered her eyes and spoke casually. It's fine. Go rest. As I studied her still pale face, my heart softened. I'm not leaving. Just let me go eat something first and then come back, okay? The disappointment vanished from Xiaoxi's face immediately. Okay, go quickly. I carried the tray out to eat. Yunhao and Yan Yang looked behind me and did not see Xiaoxi. Brother Quan, where's my sister? Sister Xiaoxi ate something and just fell asleep. Oh, she's probably fine now, right? I shook my head. She's much better. I'll go check on her again after I finish eating. When I heard that I planned to go back, Youngxi looked unhappy. After thinking for a moment, she said, Little brother, Xiaoxi's health is normally excellent. It's not good for either your reputation or hers. I agreed on the surface, but after eating, I clutched my stomach and said dramatically, Come on, sis, my stomach hurts. I'm going first. Then I ran back toward my room. Once no one was watching, me secretly slipped into Xiaoxi's room. I frowned. Why aren't you resting? Seeing me, Xiaoxi's lips rose slightly. Frowning, I said, You're already sick. Can't you just rest properly? Xiaoxi showed an apologetic smile. Something urgent came up that I have to handle. I wasn't truly trying to scold her. I simply felt sorry for her. Hearing the concern in my voice, Xiaoxi moved the laptop aside, took my arm, and leaned against me. She looked at me with watery eyes, and my heart immediately softened. Half an hour. That's all I'll give you. Xiaoxi picked the laptop back up and resumed working while I sat quietly beside her. It was already down to 37 degrees. Good. Don't worry. I'm not leaving. Xiaoxi did not speak, but the curve of her lips betrayed her good mood. Asleep, Xiaoxi looked softer than when awake. My gaze slowly traveled over her eyebrows and features. Once my breathing became steady, Xiaoxi slowly opened her eyes and stared at me without blinking before closing them again. The first thing I saw upon opening my eyes was a section of Xiaoxi's collarbone and neck. Before I could speak, Xiaoxi leaned closer and kissed my cheek. Finally, she whispered, I'm sorry. Then she got out of bed and went into the bathroom. After a while, Xiaoxi's voice came from the bathroom. Xiao Quan, can you get me a set of clothes? Okay. I familiarly went to the wardrobe and took out an outfit. I handed her the thermometer. Sister Xiaoxi, check your temperature. She obediently took it and placed it beneath her arm. As I studied her, made the previous incident flash through my mind again. I felt I couldn't stay there any longer. Since you're better now, then I. Before I finished, Xiaoxi reached out and caught my hand. Her eyes looked pitiful. Xiao Quan, I kissed you without permission twice. Are you angry? I went still, and my ears instantly turned red. No. I know you weren't thinking clearly because you were sick. I wasn't confused. Xiaoxi's slightly seductive voice sounded beside my ear. Xiao Quan, I wanted to kiss you. I've always wanted to. Her blunt honesty left me unsure what to say. Oh, I looked away. Xiaoxi raised an eyebrow. What does oh mean, Xiao Quan? Does it mean you understand that I've always wanted to kiss you, Or, does it mean you actually want me to kiss you too? My Adam's apple moved twice. I let out a helpless sigh. Some things you can just know. You don't have to say them out loud. I didn't notice that Xiaoxi's smile was almost impossible to contain. Suddenly, she leaned toward me. Then kiss me. Xiaoxi looked at me without speaking and slowly closed her eyes. This kiss was different from everyone before it. When I finally separated, me rested my forehead against Xiaoxi's and gently patted her back. I said, I heard colds are most contagious right before you fully recover. Xiaoxi froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. Inside, however, I was thinking about something else. Perhaps it was time to change the relationship between the two of me. Seeing me thinking deeply, Xiaoxi asked gently, Xiao Quan, what are you thinking about? I'm thinking, maybe our relationship should move forward. When Xiaoxi did not answer, I continued on my own. I've already let go of Gu Shihan. I think what I feel for you is... Xiaoxi raised slightly moist eyes toward me. Xiao Quan, can you let me say it? I held her hand. Sister Xiaoxi, you've already walked 99 steps toward me. Will you let me cherish you and love you, and have a relationship with marriage as the goal? Xiaoxi had not expected me to be so serious. Tears appeared in her eyes. Yes, I'm willing to be with you. Xiaoxi smiled and hugged me tightly. I lifted her face and kissed her lips. Xiaoxi teased. Didn't you say kissing spreads colds? I pouted proudly. Wouldn't the earlier kisses spread it too? What's one more? Xiaoxi nodded in amused agreement. Right, Xiao Quan is right. When I left Xiaoxi's room and opened the door, Yunxi was standing outside wearing an expression that said she had expected exactly this. She looked past I towards Xiaoxi, looking across the entire capital. I suppose you're barely worthy of my little brother. As his older sister, I'll reluctantly approve of you too. Xiaoxi wrapped an arm around me. It's not your turn to approve or disapprove. I looked from Xiaoxi in my arms to Yunxi, whose cheeks were puffed in irritation. The two women had apparently reached some kind of strange truce, and I was in a very good mood. Sis, Xiaoxi and I are officially together now. Stop bullying her from now on. What? You're together already? Yunxi's sudden shout startled I. Xiaoxi shot her an unhappy look. We just confirmed the relationship. We've already kissed. Xiao Quan has to take responsibility for me. Then she pouted proudly at Yunxi. Yunxi looked at me with an indescribable expression. How about we think about this a little longer? I glanced at Xiaoxi beside me and smiled at Yunxi. Sis, Xiaoxi's right. We've already kissed. If I refuse to define the relationship now, wouldn't I be a scumbag? Xiaoxi's constitution really was excellent. I waited silently for several seconds, then whipped around. What the? Without thinking, I stepped backward and nearly fell into the water, but a hand caught my arm firmly. I stared wide-eyed at Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi, how did you get in here? This is the men's bath. I know. You know and you still came in? What if someone saw you? I knew Yunhao and the others weren't coming, so I came. I had absolutely nothing. Even if I'm the only one here, you still shouldn't come into the men's bath. Xiaoxi's expression became serious. Xiao Quan, you may not believe me, but I've had an uneasy feeling in my heart, so I followed you. Watching how serious she was, I stopped arguing. Xiaoxi immediately grabbed my hand and ran outside with me. Not far away, a woman stood silently holding a fruit knife. Since the situation was now under control, Xiaoxi took my hand and was about to leave with me. Suddenly, another woman carrying a knife sprang out from the side. Xiaoxi looked at me anxiously. Are you okay? What if you got hurt? I smiled. Xiaoxi, are you worried about me? I'm fine, so don't worry. Her concern was obvious. Xiaoxi's expression turned serious. Have you found out how those two got in? The owner also became solemn. We're questioning them now. We should have an answer soon. Knowing he could handle it, I and Xiaoxi prepared to return upstairs. Only then did Yan Yang and Yunhao hear about the attack downstairs, and they were about to go down to check on everyone. Then Yan Yang suddenly exclaimed, Whoa, Brother Quan, why is there blood on your clothes? Everyone immediately looked at me. I was just about to explain that it was not my blood when Xiaoxi grabbed me and dragged me back toward the room. When I and Xiaoxi came back out, Yunxi anxiously asked, How is he? Is he hurt? I helplessly replied, Sis, I'm fine. I probably brushed against someone just now. That's good, that's good. Since something like this had happened, everyone agreed it would be better to return home early. The two knife-wielding attackers were a mother and daughter. Their family company was on the verge of bankruptcy, and the girl's biological father had taken the remaining money and run away. When I heard the explanation, I was sitting on the sofa with Xiaoxi resting against my shoulder. I asked, Xiaoxi, if I ever did something that betrayed you, what would you do to me? A faint smile appeared on Xiaoxi's face as she looked up at me. Do you really want to know? I went still, then smiled awkwardly. Actually, no. I think I'd rather not know. My instincts warned me that the answer might be dangerous. I tried to escape, but Xiaoxi wrapped her arms tightly around me. I surrendered. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked something like that. Xiaoxi chuckled. Xiao Quan, what are you afraid I'd do? I joked, maybe skin me alive. Xiaoxi sat facing I and cupped my face with both hands. I wouldn't go that far, but I would be very, very sad. As she spoke, her eyes slowly reddened. Gently stroking her face, I said softly, Xiaoxi, I won't leave you. Then I lowered my head and gently kissed her lips. When the kiss ended, Xiaoxi wrapped her arms around my waist. Xiao Quan, I really like you. I coughed awkwardly. It's getting late. You should go back. Xiaoxi looked deeply at me for a moment before nodding. I'll go back then. I personally walked her to the door. Even though Xiaoxi lived just across from me, I still felt reluctant to part with her and kept holding her hand. Xiaoxi smiled, stood on tiptoe, and kissed my cheek. Good night. I reluctantly released her hand. Good night. The next morning, I came downstairs happily whistling. Everyone could tell that I was in an excellent mood. My father smiled. Xiaoquan, you seem especially happy today. Is there some special occasion? Before I could answer, Youngxi's slightly sour voice came from the side. Today, Xiaoquan is going to interview at Xiaoxi's company. Her reminder made everyone remember that, because I refused special treatment, I was going through Yan Group's normal hiring process. Extremely satisfied with my appearance, I proudly posed in front of my family. My father stared at the cheap suit with a complicated expression. He had never imagined clothes this inexpensive would one day appear in his home. My mother opened her mouth as though she wanted to say something, but after seeing how pleased I was, she swallowed her words. It looks fine. Wear whatever you like. I asked the family driver to drop I off somewhere convenient for hailing a cab, then continued to the company on my own. Once everyone had arrived, she announced, "Please collect your number cards. When your number is called, enter the office for your interview." Everyone lined up to receive a number. I happened to stand between the two men when a mocking laugh came from behind. "Do you two even know how big Yang Group is? What a pair of country bumpkins." I and the other plainly dressed applicant turned around. The man behind me wore a bright-colored suit and was dressed so flamboyantly that, if I had no idea he had come looking for a job, I might have mistaken him for a male escort searching for clients. The assistant called loudly, "Yun Tao." Without thinking, I lifted my gaze and realized the flashy man was named Yun Tao. I patted his shoulder. "You're Ye Cheng, right? You can definitely make it." Ye Cheng lowered his head with little confidence. Before he could respond, I continued, "Be more confident. You can do it." Hearing my encouragement, Yi Cheng finally smiled. "Thank you, Xiao Quan. You're welcome." Soon, Yun Tao walked out looking smug. Yun Tao immediately put on a panicked expression. "Sorry, you won't blame me, will you?" I studied him and clearly saw the triumph in his eyes. As I studied his drenched appearance, I smiled. "Of course I won't blame you. You won't blame me, right?" Yun Tao froze for a moment before exploding with curses. "What the hell? Are you crazy?" He glared at me as though he wanted to tear I apart. I calmly tossed the empty paper cup aside. "Courtesy demands reciprocity. I learned it from you." Yun Tao stepped forward as though he was about to hit me, but the assistant rushed over after hearing the commotion. When I saw that the two involved were I and Yun Tao, she asked with a complicated expression, "What happened?" Before Yun Tao could complain, I calmly said, "Your clothes are wet. Shouldn't you go change?" His face darkened. I turned to the assistant with a smile. "Sorry for disturbing the interviews." She stared at me in surprise, then replied, "It's fine. Just be more careful." After that she left. Me calmly returned to Yi Cheng and found him staring at me with admiration. "What?" I asked. "You're pretty impressive." I smiled casually. "Listen, man. Only when you stand up for yourself will they stop looking down on you." Yi Cheng thought over my words and nodded. "I understand." Then he noticed my coat. "Your jacket is soaked. Do you want to dry it?" I lowered my gaze and saw a large wet patch. "Yeah, I probably should." I took my things to the restroom and happened to run into Yun Tao again. I encouraged him. "You can do it." Thanks." Yi Cheng got up and walked into the office. After reading my resume, the interviewers all looked quite satisfied. "Xiao Quan, correct?" "Yes." "We've reviewed your resume. Could you briefly explain why you want to join Yang Group?" "Of course." I answered confidently and spoke with natural composure. They smiled. "Very good. Please wait outside for the result." "Thank you." I stood, bowed politely to them, and left the office. Watching how relaxed I looked, Yi Cheng asked, "Xiao Quan, how did it go?" "I think it was okay." "Then I should congratulate you in advance." I shook my head. "Before the results are announced, anything can happen. Let's wait until we know for sure." Yi Cheng looked at me, then smiled. "You're right." Several hours later, the assistant came over holding a list. "I'll announce the successful applicants now: Yun Tao, Ye Cheng, and Xiao Quan." When Yi Cheng heard his name, he was stunned. "I really got hired?" Yun Tao rolled his eyes. "What an ignorant bumpkin." Ignoring the mockery, I smiled at Yi Cheng. "Looks like we're co-workers now. I hope we work well together." "Yes, definitely." I, Yun Tao, and Yi Cheng were assigned to the sales department. 5 minutes before the end of the workday, I received a message from Xiaoxi. "Don't rush off after work. Wait for me," I replied. "Okay." Then, acting almost like a thief, I quietly made my way to the underground parking garage and headed toward Xiaoxi's car. The second I got into the car, Xiaoxi threw herself into my arms and pressed a warm kiss to my face. "My little boyfriend, how did your first day feel?" I rubbed the back of my neck. "Pretty good. There wasn't much to do on the first day." She asked, "Why didn't you choose an easier department?" "The sales department is fine. It'll be good training for me." When I saw that I was determined, Xiaoxi did not argue. Holding my arm, she smiled. "Okay, to celebrate your first day, I'll take you out for dinner." I shook my head. "Mom and Dad are already waiting at home. They said they wanted to celebrate too, so let's go home." Hearing me say "let's go home" filled Xiaoxi with a strong sense of belonging. "Okay, let's go home." When Youngxi and Yunhao saw Xiaoxi come home with me, neither looked especially happy, Youngxi least of all. My mother smiled. "Xiao Quan, how was your first day?" Pretty good. Everything went smoothly. When I heard that made her very happy. She looked at Xiaoxi, who was holding my arm. Xiaoxi, please take good care of Xiao Quan at work from now on. Xiaoxi gave a gentle smile. I will, Aunt Yun. Good, good. Come on, let's eat. To celebrate my first day, my mother had arranged an enormous dinner. Throughout the meal, Yung Si and my mother kept putting food into my bowl until it was piled into a little mountain. After dinner, Xiaoxi prepared to leave, and I headed to see her out. As soon as I reached the courtyard, I naturally took Xiaoxi's hand. Suddenly, Xiaoxi said, Xiao Quan, if you run into any trouble at the company, tell me. I turned and looked at her confidently. Xiaoxi, don't worry. If I run into a problem, I'll find a way to solve it myself. Xiaoxi looked up at me for a long moment, then sighed softly and buried herself in my arms. Xiao Quan, I actually wish you didn't always have to be so sensible. My body stiffened for a second before I wrapped my arms around her waist. Xiaoxi, do you know something? Except for Grandma, no one has ever told me they wished I didn't have to be so sensible. I just never had the chance. Xiaoxi hugged me even tighter. From now on, when you're with me, you don't have to be sensible all the time. You can simply be yourself, okay? I lowered my head and smiled at her. People say dating isn't any fun unless you act a little shameless sometimes. You'd indulge me even then? I would. Xiaoxi, if you spoil me without any limits, aren't you afraid I'll become lawless? Xiaoxi thought seriously for a moment, then stood on tiptoe and kissed my cheek. No, I'd welcome it. I joked, Miss Yan, where are your principles? I still remember how you were when we first met, cold, elegant, untouchable. Xiaoxi smiled, and her already beautiful face became even more stunning. My heart sped up. Xiaoxi, you're really beautiful. She leaned her face closer. Do you like it? I tightened my arms around her and kissed her cheek. Of course. I like you very much. The two of me lingered affectionately for a while before finally separating. When I returned home, looking radiant, Yunxi and my mother felt strangely heartbroken. The two women sighed at the same time. The precious little pig their family had only just found had already been hooked away by someone else's cabbage. I completely missed the jealousy in my mother's and sister's eyes and happily returned to my room. On the bus, I saw Yi Cheng looking half asleep. I walked over. What a coincidence. You're here too, Xiao Quan. It's you. Yeah, you're out this early too? Yi Cheng could barely keep his eyes open. My place is pretty far away. What about you? When he asked where I lived, I vaguely replied, nearby, not far. When I saw that I didn't want to elaborate, he did not press. After standing on the bus for half an hour, I finally reached the area near the company. Turning toward the sound, I saw Xiaoxi step out, radiating the commanding aura of a powerful businesswoman. Xiaoxi walked toward the entrance without looking to either side. Yi Cheng had been transfixed from the instant she appeared, his gaze practically glued to her. Her cool eyes swept lightly across Yi Cheng, then lingered on me for one extra second, before she calmly continued on her way. When she looked over, me lowered my gaze, although the corner of my mouth secretly curved upward. After Xiaoxi walked away, Yi Cheng finally seemed to recover. He asked in surprise, that was President Yan, right? Probably. Yi Cheng's eyes were full of fascination. President Yan is so beautiful, and she's young and accomplished too. If she ever took a liking to me, I'd never have to worry about food or money again. I looked in the direction Xiaoxi had gone. Yeah, she really is amazing. Yi Cheng nodded. Exactly. I don't think there's a man alive who could resist President Yan's charm. I gave him a mysterious smile. Who knows? Maybe President Yan has already taken a liking to me. Yi Cheng looked at me disdainfully. Anyone can brag. The two of me laughed and joked as I entered the company. Meanwhile, after Xiaoxi stepped into her private elevator, the corners of her lips lifted slightly. Seeing the person she loved first thing in the morning put her in an excellent mood for the rest of the day. Yan Group was a massive company. Not only were the salaries high, the employee benefits were excellent as well. To my surprise, Xiaoxi had come to the employee cafeteria too. In a restrained tone, she asked, "Is anyone sitting here?" I swallowed the meat in my mouth and smiled. No. Xiaoxi nodded and sat across from me, picked up her chopsticks and began eating. While calmly eating, I asked, "Why are you in the employee cafeteria?" Xiaoxi's expression did not change. "I come here occasionally to taste the cafeteria food." I continued eating, using the motion to hide my smile. "Oh, so, President Yan came only to sample the cafeteria food." Xiaoxi glanced at me, and in a serious yet gentle tone she said very quietly, "Because I knew I would see you if I came here." I didn't dare look at her and kept pretending to focus on my food. I rapidly cleared my tray, stood up with it, and said, "President Yan, enjoy your meal. I won't disturb you." Then I hurried away. Not long after I left, Xiaoxi also carried her tray out of the cafeteria. The male employees who had been hoping for a chance encounter and a seat beside Xiaoxi were grinding their teeth in frustration. They had been so close, just a little closer, and perhaps they could have eaten at the same table as their president. Meanwhile, Xiaoxi was riding the elevator back to her office when she received my message. "Don't come to the employee cafeteria tomorrow," she replied. "Why?" My response came, "Because if you come a few more times, I'm afraid I won't be able to hide how much I like you." Xiaoxi's lips immediately curved upward. I and Xiaoxi had not seen each other properly for some time. Instead of impulsively going upstairs, I took out my phone and sent her a message. "Xiaoxi, are you busy? Can I come up?" A reply came quickly. "I'm free. I'll have my assistant come down for you. My heart leaped. I stood and headed toward the elevator. Okay, I'll wait here. Following Xiaoxi's instructions, her assistant personally came downstairs. Outwardly, she remained calm, but inwardly she was already screaming. Wasn't this President Yan's mysterious boyfriend? Mr. Xiaoquan, she asked. Please follow me. When the elevator reached the 18th floor, the assistant led me to Xiaoxi's office. I opened the door but did not see Xiaoxi anywhere. I studied the assistant in confusion. Understanding immediately, she explained, President Yan is still in a meeting. Xiaoquan, please wait a little. I rubbed the back of my neck, so I entered the president's office openly, sat down on the sofa, and began looking around. When the assistant returned to the conference room, Xiaoxi merely glanced at her and continued listening seriously to the manager's reports. Just as the assistant wondered about this, Xiaoxi suddenly said, Everyone remaining, keep your reports brief. That single sentence made the assistant's imagination explode. When it ended, Xiaoxi did not linger for even a second. She hurried over and threw herself into my arms. Sorry to keep you waiting. I shook my head with a smile. It wasn't that long. If I'd known you were this busy, I wouldn't have come. Xiaoxi tightened her arms around me. Absolutely not. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. I smiled. Then give me a kiss. She instinctively closed her eyes and waited for me. I placed one hand on the back of her head and kissed her deeply and lingeringly. When the kiss ended, I met the laughter in Xiaoxi's eyes and belatedly became embarrassed. Glancing around, I asked, We're kissing in your office. What if someone walks in? Xiaoxi's lips curved. The door is locked. And isn't it a little late to remember that only after we've already finished? She hugged me. Why did you suddenly want to see me? Is something bothering you at work? I hesitated, then admitted, a little. Xiaoxi frowned as she looked into my eyes. Did someone bully you? I let out a laugh and shook my head. I'm this smart. I was just conflicted for a while. Then I sighed. Forget it. It's already over. The incident had happened a few days earlier. When she realized I wouldn't cooperate, she began harassing Yi Cheng instead. I had helped Yi Cheng fend off several rounds of harassment, yet Yi Cheng misunderstood my good intentions. He thought I was blocking his path to promotion and money, so he willingly climbed into the supervisor's bed. I hugged Xiaoxi tightly. Don't worry. If I ever run into something I truly can't solve, I'll definitely come to our President Yan for help. Xiaoxi leaned against me, looking gentle but saying nothing. I kissed her cheek. Don't worry. Let me handle it myself, okay? Xiaoxi looked deeply at me before finally nodding helplessly. Then she asked, Are you working this afternoon? I thought for a moment and shook my head. I took half a day off. I have nowhere else to go, so Xiaoxi, will you keep me for the afternoon? Of course. But I still have some work this afternoon. That's fine. Go work. I released my arms from around her and started toward the sofa. I studied her in confusion. But just as my lips were about to touch her cheek, she suddenly turned her head, causing I to kiss her lips directly. So Xiaoquan would rather kiss my lips? She teased. I pushed her toward the desk. Go work. And you still have time to slack off here? Xiaoxi smiled. Okay, I'll stop teasing you. I'll take you out for dinner after work. Then I want to feast. Okay. Once Xiaoji entered work mode, she quickly forgot that I was still in the office. I sat quietly nearby without making a sound or disturbing her, though from time to time I found myself staring at her while she worked. Suddenly, Xiaoxi's clear, pleasant voice sounded. Xiaoquan, do you want me to get any work done at all? I withdrew my gaze and pretended to look down at my phone. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaoxi was still immersed in her work when she suddenly noticed the sound of steady breathing in the office. Xiaoxi crouched beside the sofa and looked at me with a faint smile. Slowly, she leaned down, and just as her lips were about to touch mine, suddenly, the office door opened. President Yan, these documents urgently need your signature. Assistant Li clearly had not wanted to interrupt, but the papers truly could not wait. Unfortunately, she had entered at exactly the wrong moment and caught her boss leaning down to steal a kiss. Before the assistant left, Xiaoxi said quietly, Check the matter I asked you to arrange earlier. See whether something went wrong. The assistant stiffened, suddenly realizing she might have botched her boss's instructions. Yes, President Yan. I'll investigate immediately. Sitting behind her desk, Xiaoxi looked toward my sleeping figure with a thoughtful gaze. There were several missed calls from my mother and sister asking why I hadn't returned home. When the two women learned that I was with Xiaoxi, they were reluctant but reassured. When I lifted my head, Xiaoxi had somehow appeared at the office doorway. Hungry? I'll take you to dinner. I got up and walked over. You finished your work? Xiaoxi nodded. Work never really ends, but I was very efficient today, so I can leave early. Come on, I'll take you to eat. Okay. After tidying up, I left the office together. On the way to the restaurant, I remembered falling asleep in Xiaoxi's office and asked awkwardly, I didn't interfere with your work after I fell asleep, did I? Xiaoxi had been thinking about something else. Hearing my question, she smiled. You interfered a lot, but I sleep quietly. I shouldn't have made any noise. Xiaoxi suddenly leaned close. You were very quiet, but with you there, I couldn't concentrate at all. I went still, then turned away in embarrassment. Yet, Xiaoxi's mind was actually on what she had asked her assistant to investigate. The person HR was supposed to specially look after was I. But somehow the preferential treatment had ended up going to a man named Ye Cheng instead. The assistant nearly collapsed when she learned the truth. Convinced she was about to lose her job, with a tragic sense of impending doom, she reported everything to Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi curled into my arms, her voice gentle. Did you feel wronged? I paused, then understood that she knew everything. Not really. As long as they behave, I won't do anything to them. Xiaoxi praised softly. My Xiao Quan is amazing. When I saw that she was upset on my behalf, I kissed her. Okay. Today, I'm definitely going to make my CEO girlfriend spend a fortune. Xiaoxi's sadness immediately disappeared. Fine, I'll treat you to a huge dinner. And Xiaoxi really did take I out for a luxurious meal. After getting out of the car, I held Xiaoxi's hand and walked slowly toward the old Yan residence. Both of me moved in perfect, unspoken agreement, wishing the road home could be longer and longer. From my angle, I could see only the graceful line of Xiaoxi's eyes and her delicate nose. She looked excessively beautiful from every angle. Xiaoxi, did you really never have another boyfriend before me? Her mouth curved slightly. What? Is Xiao Quan investigating my romantic history? I looked away shyly. No, I just think I've already dated once, so it seems unfair if you've never dated at all. Did you really never have anyone? I was genuinely curious. Someone as exceptional as Xiaoxi had truly never been in love. Xiaoxi shook her head seriously and leaned into my arms. No, I have no ex-boyfriend and no unforgettable first love. From beginning to end, you're the only person I've ever wanted. Her sweet words made my pulse kicked up. I did wonder whether the phrase waiting faithfully for you sounded a little too dramatic. Seeing me remain silent, Xiaoxi continued. Your sister and I were practically inseparable before. If you don't believe me, ask her. Inseparable? Didn't anyone ever suspect that the two of you? I trailed off. Xiaoxi immediately understood and pinched my arm. What nonsense are you thinking? If I had ended up with your sister, what would you do? I rubbed the back of my neck. I was only saying it. Don't take it seriously. Xiaoxi wrapped both arms around my waist. Xiao Quan, I may not have many special virtues, but I am loyal. Once I give my heart to someone, it is for life. So are you ready to be pestered by me for the rest of your life? I looked into her beautiful eyes, filled with tenderness and devotion. Xiaoxi, you're really unfair. It's just that your loyalty is one of the best things about you. Xiaoxi gazed at me gently, then kissed my cheek. Tilting her head, she brought her lips near my ear. Xiao Quan, I'm not as perfect as you think. I just don't want you to see them yet. Then Xiaoxi straightened and raised a hand near her lips. Okay, go inside. Otherwise, Yunxi may come charging out with a kitchen knife. I went still, then turned and saw Yunxi standing at the doorway. The moment she noticed me looking, Yunxi immediately smiled. I gave Xiaoxi an amused look, waved goodbye, and walked toward the house. I grinned as I approached Yunxi. Sis, why did you come outside? Yunxi hummed cheerfully, her gaze landing on Xiaoxi with a trace of triumph. I helplessly pushed my sister inside, then looked back at Xiaoxi and silently mouthed, "Good night." Xiaoxi smiled and nodded. On the way home, the smile disappeared from Xiaoxi's face. She took out her phone and dialed a number. Assistant Lee, help me handle something. Recently, I had begun taking on real responsibilities at work, and every day was busy and fulfilling. My family, however, noticed how tired I looked. While I ate a late-night snack, my father and mother sat beside me with loving expressions. My father tried several times to say something, only for my mother to stop him. When I finished eating, she finally asked, Xiao Quan, have you been very tired at work lately? My father immediately added, exactly. If it's really too exhausting, then Dad, Mom, I'm fine. There has been a lot of work lately, but I actually like this job. I knew my father doted on his younger son, but I truly liked my current work and life. When I heard that, he swallowed the words then quit. As long as you're happy, Dad will support you, but work is important and your health is even more important. Understand? I gave a small nod. I know. Thanks, Dad. Good. Go upstairs and rest. Okay. After I went upstairs, my father's smile faded. He turned to my mother. Honey, don't you think Xiao Quan seems to have something on his mind lately? My mother nodded. Could he have had some trouble at the company? My father's face became serious. He only recently came home, and I've always felt he was a little withdrawn. He refused to let us or Xiaoxi give him special privileges. What if his coworkers are bullying him? The thought that someone might bully the precious son they had finally recovered immediately changed his whole aura. My mother also looked worried. Why don't we ask Yunhao to talk to him? It might be easier between brothers. That same night, Yunhao knocked directly on my bedroom door. I let him in, and the two of me sat on the bed. Xiao Quan, has anything unpleasant happened at work lately? Only then did I understand why Yunhao had come. Everything's pretty good. In front of my family, I didn't really want to complain. Yunhao smiled gently. Xiao Quan, can you tell your brother what happened? Just when Yunhao thought I would refuse, I briefly recounted the events of the past few weeks. So that guy Yi Cheng has been making trouble for you? I gave a small nod. After a moment, I asked, Brother, do you think I really did something wrong? Yunhao gathered his thoughts and sighed. Xiao Quan, you weren't wrong. You felt sorry for Yi Cheng and helped him because that's the kind of person you're. But you need to understand that kindness doesn't always bring kindness in return. I gave a small nod. I know. Actually, before I went to see Xiaoxi, I'd already thought it through. No rich woman could compare with my little girlfriend anyway. Yunhao's expression froze for a second before he laughed and patted my shoulder. That's more like the Xiao Quan I know. You don't need to be afraid. When Yunhao left my room, he turned and found my parents standing outside. He jumped slightly and lowered his voice. Mom, Dad, why are you still awake? My mother anxiously asked. Yunhao, what did your brother say? Yunhao repeated my story. The next morning, when I came downstairs, I found the whole family already seated at the dining table waiting. Knowing Yunhao was the one who had told them everything, I ran over and sat beside him. Wow, brother, you look really handsome today. Yunhao gave me a look that said I had excellent taste. Then I curiously asked, brother, why are you dressed so well? Are you going to find me a sister-in-law? Seeing my parents look over, Yunhao's forehead immediately filled with black lines. He even got into the same car. Brother, Yunhao explained, I have something to discuss with Xiaoxi today, so I'll go with you. I didn't think much of it and chatted happily with him. I stepped from the car, smiling when a male voice suddenly sounded behind me. Xiaoquan, what are you doing here? I spun around and saw Yun Tao standing not far away in shock. Yun Tao hurried over and tried to open it. Before he could touch the handle, I grabbed his wrist. What are you doing? Yun Tao looked at me and suddenly sneered. What? Afraid I'll see what your sugar daddy looks like. His words were ugly enough that Yunhao, still in the car, frowned unhappily. Seeing a seriously handsome man emerge from the vehicle, Yun Tao became even more stunned. His expression turned bizarre. Xiaoquan, you rode here with a man? I cut him off. When your heart is filthy, everything you see looks filthy too. Your mouth stinks. I didn't indulge him at all, and immediately fired back. I turned to Yunhao. Brother, I'm going to work. Go. Not long after I entered the office, the creepy female supervisor from several days earlier was suddenly taken away by the police. A new supervisor, Wang, was transferred into the department, and Yunhao appeared with her. Pointing toward Yun Tao and Yi Cheng, who were bickering nearby, he said, Supervisor Wang, I heard today is your first day in the sales department. Supervisor Wang nodded with an almost flattering smile. Yes, President Yun. I was transferred here today. Yunhao nodded, his gaze sweeping toward Yun Tao and Yi Cheng. Rules are necessary. Trash that cannot be presented in public should be swept out early. Then he pointed at Yi Cheng. You, go get me something to drink. Yi Cheng stared at him in disbelief. Me? Yunhao's gaze was icy. If not you, then me? Realizing he had spoken foolishly, Yi Cheng immediately apologized and cautiously asked, what would you like to drink? Yunhao glanced casually at his watch. Anything. I'll wait there. This way, President Yun, I'll take you. Supervisor Wang led Yunhao into the conference room. Once they entered the meeting room, Supervisor Wang came back out, walked straight to me, and said, bring your things and come inside. I gave a small nod and picked up a document and a pen. Just then, Yi Cheng knocked on the door carrying a tray. President Yun, your coffee. Yunhao picked up the cup, took a small sip, then spat it out and slammed it heavily on the table. This bitter? Are you trying to poison me with bitterness? Yi Cheng hurriedly took the cup away. Sorry, President Yun. I'll make another. Then he rushed out. Yunhao took a sip and spat it out again. This sweet? Are you trying to give me diabetes? I'm sorry. I'll make another one. Yi Cheng returned yet again with coffee. Yunhao took one sip and spat it out. There's no milk. I can't drink it like this. Yi Cheng rushed out once more and remade it. He touched the cup and said coldly, it's gone cold. Make another. Watching from the side, I silently gave my brother a thumbs up. Yi Cheng's eyes were already red, but he obediently went out again. This time, he stayed in the pantry longer, checking everything repeatedly before carefully carrying the coffee back in. President Yun, this is what you asked for. Yunhao picked it up but did not drink. Instead, he abruptly put it down. You brought me coffee this hot? What exactly are you trying to do? Yi Cheng froze, looking at the steam rising from the cup. He felt deeply wronged but dared not protest. I'm sorry. Yunhao snapped. Sorry, the only thing you know how to say. You're an intern and you can't even handle something as simple as making coffee. Why should the company keep someone like you? Yi Cheng stood there helplessly, not knowing what to do. The more Yunhao thought about how this man had treated his younger brother, the angrier he became. He nearly wanted to kick him out of the room. Forget the coffee. Go buy me lemon tea. Yi Cheng said shakily. There's no lemon tea in the pantry. If there isn't any here, can't you buy it outside? Do I need to teach you where to buy tea too? Yi Cheng quickly shook his head and hurried out. The moment he was gone, Yunhao returned to his earlier friendly demeanor. Okay, Supervisor Wang, let's begin. Yes. Supervisor Wang opened a document and started presenting. More than 10 minutes later, Yi Cheng hurried back carrying a cup of lemon tea and carefully placed it before Yunhao. This time, he was not deliberately tormenting Yi Cheng. The lemon tea was simply awful. If you didn't want to run the errand, just say so. There was no need to buy me something this disgusting. Seeing Yunhao's disgusted expression, Yi Cheng tried to defend himself. This shop sells a lot of lemon tea. Yunhao pushed it away in distaste. When I saw that Yi Cheng was still standing there, he became annoyed. You can go, we don't need you here. Yi Cheng did not dare argue and left with his head lowered. Yunhao had come to Yan Group specifically to help his younger brother vent his anger. Now that he had thoroughly taught Yi Cheng a lesson, there was no reason for him to stay much longer. Half an hour later, Yunhao walked out of the meeting room. He smiled at Supervisor Wang. You can discuss the rest with my assistant. This young intern can escort me to the elevator. Supervisor Wang smiled and turned to me. Xiaoquan, please see President Yun out properly. I gave a small nod. Yes, Supervisor Wang. President Yun, this way. To avoid exposing my identity, I didn't speak familiarly with Yunhao throughout the entire walk. When I reached the elevator, just before Yunhao stepped inside, me whispered so only the two of us could hear. Thanks, brother. Not long after I went back to my work, my phone received a message from him. Off work yet? Almost. Why, brother? Nothing. I'll wait in the car. Okay. Then I messaged Xiaoxi. My brother came to pick me up, so I'll leave first. You don't need to wait for me. Xiaoxi replied that she understood, adding that she had a business engagement that evening. Whenever the heroine attended a drinking event, something bad always seemed to happen or she encountered some romantic rival. Will you be drinking tonight? Where is it? For some reason, my heart felt uneasy. When I came out of the shower and checked my phone, Xiaoxi still had not sent any message or called. I had originally planned to tell Xiaoxi about what happened during the day, so I couldn't sleep. Li Xia had sent me a location. Brother-in-law, something happened to Sister Xiaoxi. Come quickly. There was no time to explain things to my parents. The moment she saw me, she looked as though she had found a savior. Brother-in-law, hurry and check on Sister Xiaoxi. She won't let anyone touch her, and she locked herself inside. My heart tightened. I scanned the room but did not see Xiaoxi, so I hurried toward the inner restroom. I called softly, Xiaoxi, are you inside? I'm here to take you home. The person inside apparently recognized my voice. The door opened, and Xiaoxi immediately threw herself into my arms. Xiaoquan, why are you here? Seeing the abnormal flush on her face and the pale color of her lips, I said nothing and simply lifted her into my arms. I glanced coldly at the people lying on the floor and told her, I'm taking Xiaoxi away. I'll leave the rest to you. Then I took Xiaoxi to the hospital. Ever since I had suddenly driven away without explanation, my whole family had been worried and none of them had gone to sleep. I briefly explained the situation, then said, Brother, can you help me with something? I want those people to understand the consequences of what they did. My family had already ordered an investigation after I left, but there had not yet been enough time for results. Before Yunhao could respond, my father snatched the phone. Xiaoquan, no problem. Between the Yun family and the Yan family, we can handle it. Warmth spread through my heart. Thanks, Dad. After hanging up, I went back to the hospital room and discovered Xiaoxi had already awakened. I was worried sick inside, but deliberately kept a stern expression as I sat beside her bed. Didn't you say you could drink 1,000 cups without falling? How did you get yourself into this state? Xiaoxi looked at me carefully. I'm sorry, Xiaoquan. I made you worry. That only made me angrier. You know I'd worry? If Li Xia hadn't contacted me, I might have thought you were off becoming someone else's girlfriend. I continued lecturing her. When you go out, be more careful. If something happens, remember to call me. I failed to notice the corners of Xiaoxi's mouth gradually rising. You care about me that much? Normally, I might have evaded the question out of embarrassment, but this time I reached out and held her hand. Yes, so please don't make me worry like this again, okay? Xiaoxi's eyes brightened. Okay. Considering she had only just awakened and it was the middle of the night, I called a nearby restaurant and asked them to send something light. When the food arrived, Xiaoxi raised her injured arm and weakly said, Xiaoquan, my hand. As I studied the scraped skin on the back of her hand from fighting and the cut on her arm, I helplessly lifted a spoon. Open your mouth. Xiaoxi happily ate half a bowl of porridge before saying she was full. I tucked the blanket around her. Sleep for a while. I'll stay here. Xiaoxi glanced at the pajamas I hadn't even had time to change and patted the space beside her. It's cold at night. Why don't you lie down here? The VIP hospital bed was large enough. After seeing that I was sleeping soundly, Xiaoxi quietly got out of bed, afraid of disturbing I, and went into the hallway for a while. I and Xiaoxi opened my eyes simultaneously and saw Yunxi standing beside the bed carrying a fruit basket, her eyes wide. Xiaoxi, you're injured and you still dragged my little brother into your bed. I lowered my gaze at my current position. My arms were around Xiaoxi's waist, and her head was resting on my chest. I opened my mouth to explain. Sis, it's not what it looks like. Yunxi cut I off with an expression that clearly said she understood everything. Then she sat on the sofa and asked Xiaoxi in a flat voice, how are you? Xiaoxi composed herself, got up, and sat beside her. I'm fine. Nothing serious. Yunxi looked at the thick bandages around Xiaoxi's arm, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. We've already investigated the people from last night. I suppose you benefited from my brother this time. I haven't seen Dad act this decisively in years. Xiaoxi turned toward me in surprise. Xiaoxi looked at me with smiling eyes. Thank you, Xiaoquan. I replied grumpily, just be more careful next time. Yunxi had come early, not only to visit Xiaoxi but also to bring I fresh clothes. After changing, I gave Xiaoxi another round of instructions and went to work. When work ended, I checked the time and messaged my family. I won't be home for dinner tonight. The second I finished work, I went straight to the hospital. When I arrived, Xiaoxi was sitting in bed holding a laptop and conducting a meeting. Seeing me, she smiled and told the people on the call, okay, do it according to what I said. I frowned. You're injured and still not resting properly. The moment she looked at me, a smile appeared unconsciously on her lips. Work never ends. It was only an urgent meeting, and it didn't take long. I placed the food I had brought on the table. Hungry? Come eat. After dinner, I moved to go home. Seeing me about to leave, Xiaoxi said pitifully, I don't want to stay in the hospital. I want to go home. I called her attending physician and asked about her condition. Since there was nothing serious and she only needed rest, the doctor agreed she could be discharged. The driver first took Xiaoxi to the Yan residence. Seeing Xiaoxi in that state, her grandmother's eyes immediately filled with tears. Thank you, Xiaoquan. Thank you for taking care of Xiaoxi. I waved awkwardly. It's nothing. She only needs to rest, so please don't worry. Her grandmother nodded gently. Then I'll leave Xiaoxi to the family. I'll head home now. After saying goodbye to the Yan family, I went back to the Yuan residence. The second I stepped inside, my parents pulled me onto the sofa. My father said, "Xiaoquan, if anything like this happens again, tell Dad immediately." My mother quickly added, "Exactly. You scared me to death last night." I could only helplessly agree to everything they said. Remembering the assignment my supervisor had given I began researching online because I had never written this kind of proposal before and wanted to do my best. Since the proposal could not be completed in one day anyway, I was about to shut down the computer, return to my room when someone knocked on the study door. She held a glass of milk. "Why are you here?" I asked. "I saw the study light was still on and guessed you hadn't gone to sleep, so I brought you some milk." I accepted it. "Thanks, Xiaoxi. Go back and rest." Xiaoxi laughed at my rare forcefulness. "We aren't even married yet and you already manage me this strictly. What will happen after we marry?" Her bold mention of marriage caught me completely off guard. Stammering, I said, I'm not trying to control you. I just..." Xiaoxi smiled. "I know. You're worried about my health." I gave a small nod quickly. "Exactly. Then if you're worried about my health, can you worry about your own too? Get some rest." I pointed at the computer. "If you hadn't knocked, I'd already be shutting it down." Xiaoxi pouted playfully. "So Xiaoquan is blaming me for interrupting his sleep?" I panicked. No. You know I didn't mean that." Xiaoxi laughed at my flustered appearance. "Okay, I'm going back. Good night, Xiaoxi." She had taken only a few steps when she stopped and looked back. "Xiaoquan, did you forget something?" I rubbed the back of my neck and looked around. "No, what did I forget?" Xiaoxi said nothing and simply leaned closer and closer. "Xiaoquan, you still haven't given me a good night kiss." As I studied her beautiful bare face, I muttered, "We never had a good night kiss before." Xiaoxi hugged me and looked up. "Then we have one starting now." I could only smile. "I really can't do anything with you." Then I kissed her firmly on the lips. When it ended, Xiaoxi smiled. "Good night, Xiaoquan." The next day after work, I buried myself in the study again. As soon as they heard I was struggling with a proposal, my father, Yun Hao, and Yungxi all declared themselves experts and began arguing over who should guide me. Eventually, my mother made the final decision and packed I off to an outside expert. A few minutes later, I was sitting in Xiaoxi's study. I rubbed my forehead helplessly. "So the outside expert Mom mentioned was you." "Looks like it, but I'm an intern at your company." "La. If the company president helps me with my promotion proposal, doesn't that count as cheating?" Xiaoxi rested her chin in her hands and smiled. "It does sound a little unfair." I gave a small nod. "Exactly. Then I'll go back and study it myself." The second I stood, Xiaoxi pulled me back. "You just got here and you already want to leave?" "Well, I didn't exactly come here on my own." Xiaoxi immediately put on a wounded expression. "So, Xiaoquan doesn't want to stay with me at all?" I let out a laugh and tapped her head. "Enough acting." Xiaoxi touched her head. "Was it that obvious? I thought my acting was pretty good." I cupped her face and kissed her cheek. "Let me try on my own first." "Okay?" Xiaoxi nodded. "Okay." So I sat beside her again and seriously worked on the proposal, while Xiaoxi handled her own business. Perhaps because Xiaoxi was beside me, a new idea suddenly appeared in my mind, and the proposal became increasingly easier to write. Whenever I encountered something I didn't understand, I humbly asked Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi checked the time and then looked at me, still full of energy. Smiling helplessly, she placed her hand over mine on the keyboard. "It's too late. The proposal isn't due immediately." I lowered my head, gathered my things, and prepared to return to my room. I said, "Rest early." "Oh, right, I was so busy with the proposal that I forgot to ask. How are your injuries?" Xiaoxi smiled faintly. "Almost healed. Don't worry." "Good. Don't be so reckless next time." Seeing the concern on my face, Xiaoxi stopped and held my arm. "I know. I just didn't want to see you sad or disappointed." I gently hugged her. "But I want you to understand something too, Xiaoxi. Don't do things that hurt yourself again. Okay?" "Okay." In the blink of an eye, the final day of my internship arrived, the day I and the other interns had to present my proposals. I drew lots for presentation order. Yi Cheng first, Yun Tao second, and I third. Watching Ye Cheng confidently walk onto the stage, a faint knowing smile appeared on my lips. Sure enough, when Ye Cheng inserted his USB drive, the file inside was completely blank. How can this be? Sweating anxiously on stage, he looked up and saw the unreadable smile on my face. Pointing at me, he shouted, "It was you. You switched the USB drives, didn't you?" I spread my hands. "Yi Cheng, I didn't do anything. From beginning to end, I only held my own USB drive." I deliberately emphasized my own. Yi Cheng seemed to understand. Every intern had been issued a USB drive upon joining, and I had never replaced mine. That morning, Yi Cheng had suddenly come to my desk, indirectly asked about the progress of my proposal. As expected, I was retained as a full-time employee, and Yun Tao was retained as well. When I went back to my desk, Yi Cheng was packing his belongings. I was so happy that my first instinct was to share the news with Xiaoxi. Although I worked at Yang Group, she was the company president and certainly did not personally track every intern's status. Once I got in the car, I told the driver, "Let's go to the Yan residence." The driver looked hesitant before carefully saying, "Young Master Xiaoquan. Miss Xiaoxi's whole family left early this morning." I was disappointed but did not show it. "Then let's go home first. I can visit later." But when I pushed open my own front door, a party popper exploded above my head. As I studied everyone standing before I, Tears gradually filled my eyes. Yang Yang was the most dramatic of all, pulling out a banner that read, "Congratulations to brother-in-law Xiaoquan on becoming a full-time employee, a cause for universal celebration." As I studied everyone trying not to laugh, I wanted to dig a hole large enough to bury the entire ancestral residence. Still, I didn't have the heart to reject their goodwill. My parents looked at me tenderly. "Congratulations to our precious son on successfully becoming permanent staff. We knew you could do it." After everyone finished congratulating Xiaozi came over and mysteriously produced a black box from behind her back. "A promotion gift. Open it and see if you like it." Inside was a pair of exquisitely crafted cufflinks that were obviously seriously expensive. Nothing says office harmony like two grown men comparing cufflinks with playoff-level intensity. As I studied all these people who cared about me, I felt as though I was living inside a dream. My voice choked. "Thank you, everyone, for celebrating with me." After dinner, the Yan family returned home. I waited until everyone in my own house had gone to rest, then secretly slipped into the study. Xiaoxi seemed to have known I would come. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open. "Did you deliberately leave the door open for me?" Sitting behind the desk, Xiaoxi smiled. "You know the answer. What is it?" I rubbed the back of my neck. "It's nothing major, I just wanted to tell you." Xiaoxi looked at me encouragingly. What I had originally intended to say was, "I did it. I'll slowly catch up to you." Yet what came out instead was simply, "I became a full-time employee." Xiaoxi found it amusing but did not expose eye. She followed along. I heard the senior executives praise your proposal highly." I smiled. "That's thanks to your guidance. As the saying goes, one good mentor can save you 10 years of bad guesses." Xiaoxi laughed. "Then how are you going to thank me? Is there anything you want? How about taking me to dinner after work tomorrow?" "That's all?" I agreed. After staying with Xiaoxi for a while longer, I went back to my room. The next morning, I came downstairs humming cheerfully. My family watched me hum a tune, announce, "I won't be home for dinner tonight," and then happily leave for work. Youngsi narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "Something's wrong. Little brother definitely has something going on." I had deliberately worn the cufflinks Xiaoxi gave me the previous day. My excellent mood lasted until the second I saw Yun Tao. He was standing in front of my desk showing co-workers a gift his fiancé had given him. My gaze landed on his wrists. Yun Tao happily boasted to the new employees, "My fiancé had these brought back from France. They're nothing like those cheap knockoffs that cost a few dozen yuan." I didn't care. Seeing the envy in the new employees' eyes, I looked more carefully at Yun Tao's cufflinks. The workmanship was obviously rough, and both the material and sheen were inferior to mine. Yun Tao assumed my silence meant guilt and strutted away in his gaudy suit. During lunch break, I was chatting with Xiaoxi on my phone about where to eat that evening. A female coworker said, "Hey, I went to the stairwell to make a call the other day. Guess what I heard?" Without changing my expression, I carried my cup a little closer and quietly pricked up my ears. The other women became curious. "Come on, tell us. You're killing us." The coworker smiled mysteriously and dropped her bombshell. "I think Yun Tao is dating President Yan." I sprayed out a mouthful of water. I waved awkwardly. "Sorry. Keep going. Keep going." They ignored I and resumed gossiping about President Yan. "You mean our company president, President Yan? Yun Tao is so flashy. How could President Yan possibly like him?" The first coworker spoke seriously. "I guarantee it's true. He vaguely said something like, 'Such a huge company still depends on you to support it.' Doesn't that indirectly reveal the other person's identity? It has to be the president. If I didn't personally know that I was the one dating Xiaoxi, even I might have been convinced by their reasoning that she and Yun Tao were together." I had barely sat down when Yun Tao came over, deliberately lifting his wrist to display his cufflinks. I planned to ignore him, but he spoke first. "Xiaoquan, my cufflinks look good, don't they? My fiancé gave them to me." When I remained silent, he continued, "My fiancé loves me. Aren't they beautiful?" Finally, losing patience, I studied him. "Yun Tao, do you live in Dunhuang? Because you've way too many murals." Yun Tao was the classic type who forgot the pain as soon as his wound healed. He stubbornly said, "Humph. These cufflinks are luxury brand and very expensive." I gave him a look and showed no mercy. "Yun Tao, every sentence out of your mouth is about money. What, poor people aren't allowed to live?" I left him completely speechless. I finished my work before the end of the day and climbed into Xiaoxi's passenger seat. Since it was my first formal date with Xiaoxi, I wanted a little romance. It would have remained perfect if I hadn't run into Yun Tao in the corridor outside the restroom, blocking my way. He sneered, "Wow, you really spent big today, huh? You can actually afford to eat here." I walked around him toward the exit. It was still obvious that she was considerably older than Yun Tao. The moment Yun Tao saw her, he stepped forward and wrapped an arm around her waist, brushing back her wavy hair. He said, "Darling, why did you come over? Didn't I tell you to wait by the entrance?" The woman coyly tapped his chest. "You were gone so long. I was afraid some little vixen might steal you." The sight made my eyes hurt, and I badly wanted to leave, but they were blocking the doorway. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me, could you let me pass?" My voice attracted the woman's attention. The moment she saw my face, her eyes lit up and she subtly moved a little away from Yun Tao. Yun Tao failed to notice and proudly introduced her. "Xiaoquan, this is my fiancé." Then he told the woman, "Baby, this is my coworker." I wasn't about to greeting them and only wanted to leave. Xiaoxi had already been waiting for me. But just as I moved to go, the woman suddenly grabbed the corner of my jacket. Darling, since meeting is fate, why don't we invite your coworker to join us for breakfast? I practically jumped backward, immediately pulling my clothes out of her hand. Yuntao finally noticed her interest in I and hurriedly laughed it off while guiding her away. Baby, my coworker came with a friend too. Another time, another time. As they left, the woman secretly winked at me and tried to slip I a business card. I hurried over. Xiaoxi, why are you here? You were gone for a long time. I was worried something happened, so I came to look. I smiled awkwardly. Nothing happened. I ran into a coworker and spoke for a moment. Xiaoxi asked, was that woman your coworker too? I never expected that question and immediately waved my hands. No, I didn't say a single thing to her. Xiaoxi remained calm, but she touched you, and she tried to give you her card. In a panic, I took off my jacket and threw it straight into the trash. There. And you saw it yourself. I didn't accept the card. I even stepped back to avoid her. I looked pitifully at Xiaoxi, unwilling to let her be unhappy. Watching how obedient I was, she finally smiled. Fine. Stop attracting flowers and butterflies everywhere you go. I let out a laugh. Understood. Since dating her, I had discovered that Xiaoxi was not cold, distant with me at all. Eugene only took her hand and walked back. Okay, there won't be a next time. They'll only be allowed to look at me and drool. Xiaoxi lightly slapped me. You're getting cheekier every day. I let out a laugh. Am I? After dinner, I didn't immediately return home. As I studied my side-by-side shadows beneath the streetlights, I felt as though I could see what the two of I might look like many years in the future. Watching Xiaoxi playfully step on my shadow, I said, Xiaoxi, why don't we go to the amusement park this weekend? Xiaoxi looked up with sparkling eyes. Okay. Smiling, I pulled her toward where the car was parked. When the weekend finally arrived, Yunhao and Yunxi had both planned to take I out and strengthen the bond between siblings. There they found my father wearing glasses and reading the newspaper in the living room. Yunxi quickly asked, Dad, have you seen Xiao Quan? He disappeared early this morning. My father glanced at the siblings. Xiao Quan went out early. Yunxi and Yunhao spoke at the same time. Went out? Where? My father calmly replied. To the amusement park with Xiaoxi. Why are you looking for him? Yunxi gritted her teeth. Damn it, we were still one step too slow. Meanwhile, I and Xiaoxi were already on the road to the amusement park. Xiaoxi wore clothes very different from her usual style, looking almost like a campus goddess. When I stopped at a traffic light, I freed one hand and gently poked her forehead. Is your boyfriend really that handsome? You've been staring forever and still haven't had enough? Xiaoxi smiled. He is handsome. I can look forever. I let out a helpless sigh. When I previously told Xiaoxi I had never been to an amusement park, that had not been entirely accurate. As I studied the crowds, I couldn't stop myself from saying, when I was little, I heard classmates talk about their parents taking them to amusement parks on weekends. I was honestly pretty jealous. Xiaoxi tightened her grip on my hand. Feeling the gesture, I turned and smiled. I'm fine. Back then, Grandma and I barely had enough for food and necessities. Going to an amusement park on the weekend was far too luxurious. Xiaoxi's voice was calm but endlessly gentle. It's okay. From now on, whatever other people have, my Xiao Quan will have too. I playfully pinched her ear. Xiaoxi, are you planning to spoil me like a child? She raised an eyebrow with amusement. Why not? Before our own children are born, I can even raise you like my son. I lost focus for a second, amazed by the strange direction her imagination had taken. Okay, let's go. I and Xiaoxi played wildly for an entire day, tried nearly everything I wanted. Whether deliberately or by coincidence, Xiaoxi saved the Ferris wheel for the final attraction. Yes, it was cheesy. So are half the best romantic movies, and nobody complains during the good part. It sounded childish, but legend said that if I kissed the person I loved when the Ferris wheel reached its highest point, the two of I would stay together for a very long time. As the cabin neared the top, I was still thinking of an excuse to kiss Xiaoxi, when, before I could say anything, she suddenly leaned forward from the opposite seat and quickly kissed my lips. Xiaoxi's cheeks were bright red, yet her lips held a blissful smile. As I studied her radiant expression, I couldn't stop smiling too. Xiaoxi, don't you think that was a little unfair? She merely pouted proudly and ignored I. I bumped Xiaoxi lightly with my shoulder. So we weren't the only ones who heard that legend. Xiaoxi smiled. What legend? Realizing I had accidentally spoken my thoughts aloud, I denied it. Nothing. You heard wrong. Xiaoxi understood perfectly but did not expose I. As I studied the amusement park glowing at night, I felt reluctant to leave. I noticed Xiaoxi's reluctance too and wrapped an arm around her shoulders, drawing her closer. Xiaoxi, whenever you want to come again, tell me. I'll bring you any time. Xiaoxi turned toward me with a smile. If I say I want to come, you'll really come with me. Of course. Whenever you want, I'll come with you. I added, no matter when. Holding Xiaoxi close, I headed toward the amusement park entrance. Halfway there, Xiaoxi suddenly slapped her forehead. Oh no, I left the souvenir bag by the Ferris wheel. I patted her head. Wait here. I'll be right back. Okay. I hurried back toward the Ferris wheel as quickly as possible. It contained the small trinkets I had bought throughout the day, all of which Xiaoxi loved. Me wasted no time and immediately hurried back along the route I had come. I pushed through the crowd searching desperately for Xiaoxi. Then several fragments of conversation reached my ears through the chaos. A crazy woman with a knife, a beautiful girl stabbed, blood everywhere. The location they described was exactly where I had told Xiaoxi to wait. Fortunately, someone had called the police immediately after the attack. By the time I finally forced my way to the scene, the police had arrived. It felt as though the entire world was collapsing, because that hat was the one Xiaoxi had worn when I left home that morning. I frantically pushed against the surrounding crowd. Xiaoxi. I kept shoving through the people. Xiaoxi. After several seconds of complete mental chaos, I shouted, "Move! Move! Don't block me!" I raised my hand, about to push aside the police officer, stopping me, when a man's voice came from the side. "Mr. Xiaoquan." I turned and saw a bodyguard in a black suit. From a distance, I saw Xiaoxi sitting on a bench, visibly shaken. I ran over and pulled her tightly into my arms, my voice choking. "Xiaoxi, you're okay. I thought something happened to you." Xiaoxi gently patted my back. "Don't be afraid." I was only frightened. My expression became serious. "What exactly happened? And your hat?" The bodyguard beside me volunteered to explain. Not long after I left, Xiaoxi remained in place waiting. Suddenly, a girl covered in blood rushed toward her and grabbed Xiaoxi's wrist like someone clutching a lifeline, begging her for help. Once she recovered, she immediately took out her phone and called the police. But at that moment, another woman came running after the injured girl with a fruit knife. When she saw both the blood-covered girl and Xiaoxi, she wore a crazed smile. The injured girl screamed and, in blind panic, actually shoved the unprepared Xiaoxi toward the knife-wielding woman. That movement seemed to enrage the attacker, who stopped chasing the wounded girl and turned her attention to Xiaoxi instead. The woman swung the knife wildly without technique. After such an incident, neither of us had any desire to remain at the amusement park. Xiaoxi closed her eyes and quietly leaned against my chest. Xiaoxi had also been frightened by the day's events. After finally falling asleep, she dreamed of the mad woman swinging a knife at her. With a gasp, Xiaoxi jolted awake and suddenly saw a dark figure standing beside her bed. Before she could scream, a warm hand gently covered her mouth. "Xiaoxi, don't be afraid. It's me." Right then, a strand of moonlight entered through the window, allowing her to see my face clearly. Feeling her body tremble slightly, I forgot about explaining why I was there and hugged her tightly. "Don't be scared. I shouldn't have left you there by yourself." Xiaoxi shook her head. "You couldn't have known something like that would happen. It wasn't your fault. Perhaps because I was with her." She quickly calmed down. Looking down at her sleepy face, I smiled and lowered my voice. "Okay, go to sleep. Before I could finish saying I would leave afterward, Xiaoxi suddenly opened her eyes and tightly gripped my clothes. After several seconds of silence, my gaze landed on her bed. "Do you mind giving me half the bed?" Xiaoxi shook her head. "I don't mind." I lay down with Xiaoxi in my arms and gently kissed her forehead. "Don't be afraid. Sleep peacefully." You can't leave." She yawned again as she spoke. I gently patted her shoulder. "Be good, Xiaozi. Sleep." But she shook her head. "I'm still a little scared, Xiaoquan. Tell me a story." I went still, then laughed. "You're already this grown and still want bedtime stories?" Xiaoxi immediately acted spoiled. "I don't care. I want you to tell me one." Of course, I had to indulge my girlfriend. So in the end, I began telling her a story. I hadn't even reached the end when I noticed Xiaoxi had already fallen asleep with her eyes closed. I muttered amusedly, "I haven't even finished the first story." Then, still holding her tightly, I fell asleep beside her. At the first light of dawn, I opened my eyes and looked carefully at the quietly sleeping Xiaoxi for several long beats. I had spent the whole night in Xiaoxi's room, and I was afraid my family would find out, so I hurried back to my own room. The second I entered the office, I found several coworkers gathered around Yun Tao, all looking at him with unusually flattering expressions. One employee who had been beside Yun Tao walked past I and muttered, "He's only the young master of the Yun family. What's with the act?" The sentence froze I in place, but then the coworker turned, saw me, and immediately smiled. "Xiaoquan, you're here." I was confused but still greeted him. "By the way, what did you mean just now by the Yun family's young master?" The coworker curled his lip and pointed toward Yun Tao. "There. That's the young master of the Yun family." My head filled with question marks. As my thoughts ran wild, the coworker continued, "Maybe you don't know which Yun family I mean. It's the family that recently recovered the younger son they lost more than 20 years ago, same family whose son has an engagement with President Yan." I stood speechless. The coworker assumed I was shocked by Yun Tao's supposed identity. After recovering, I excused myself and went to the pantry, then opened the family group chat and tagged my father. "Dad, do we have some illegitimate son wandering around outside that I don't know about?" Instantly, my mother and Yunsi filled the chat with question marks. Watching the screen explode with their messages, I felt as though the phone in my hand had become dangerously hot. When I went back to my desk, several voice messages from my father had appeared. Since I was at work and could not play them aloud, I converted them to text. The second I read them, I went still. "Which bastard is spreading rumors about me? Don't let me find out who started this rumor or I'll knock his head off." Watching how desperately my father defended his innocence, and remembering how unusually smooth Yun Tao's progress at the company had been, I finally understood something. Yun Tao had entered the company by impersonating I. But if Yun Tao dared to impersonate I so openly, did he have someone behind him? Yun Hao became furious. I knew that Yun Tao wasn't anything good the moment I saw him. He dares pretend to be a member of our family? Let's see how shameless he really is. I gave a small nod, now even more determined to uncover the truth. Yun Tao had dared impersonate Zhao Shi's fiancé and openly brag about it in the company. The next day, as soon as I arrived at work, I found crowds of people fawning over Yun Tao and doing everything possible to please him. She had called her boss the previous day, but Zhao Shi told her not to interfere, leaving her with no idea how to answer. Assistant Li's non-committal attitude made everyone even more convinced that Yun Tao truly was the Yun family's young master. Could the older woman who had tried to give I her business card at the restaurant be the source of Yun Tao's confidence? One evening, after working overtime, I reached the parking lot and saw a woman approaching. She smiled. "I remember you. You're one of my Tao Tao's co-workers, aren't you?" I said nothing and merely looked at her calmly. She smiled again. "Handsome. About the business card I gave you last time." I cut her off. "Ma'am, is there something you need?" I didn't want to waste time with her, so my manner was seriously cold. She did not become angry and continued smiling. "My name is Yan Yu. What's yours?" "What? Your surname is Yan?" For the first time, my expression changed. Her smile grew wider. "Yes, my surname is Yan." While I was wondering about that, a voice suddenly came from behind. "Darling, did you come to pick me up from work?" The second I heard Yun Tao's voice, I slipped into my car before he could notice. Once seated, I called Assistant Li, asked her to investigate whether anyone else with the surname Yan held a position in the company. I realized that after returning to the Yun family, my life had become far more colorful. I not only had relatives who loved me, but Xiaoji as well. Seeing me enter, Young Shi patted the place beside her and eagerly asked for the latest developments about the fake young master. I studied her helplessly. "Sis, how did I never notice before that you were this nosy?" Then I explained my suspicions. Although my room had excellent soundproofing, I still rushed forward and covered her mouth. "Sis, you're laughing way too hard. Control yourself." After keeping her mouth covered for a while, I released her and found she was still grinning. "No, I can't. I've never seen anything this ridiculous." I rubbed my forehead helplessly. "Sis, we haven't even found out the whole truth yet." Yun Shi ignored I. "Fine, little brother. You've to tell me when there's an update." Still laughing, she left. The next morning, as I arrived at the company, I bumped into Yun Tao coming out of the elevator. The moment Yun Tao saw it, he pointed at me and cursed. "Xiaoquan, you thief." I gave him a look, calmly picked up the cufflink, and returned it to my pocket. Before accusing me, "Could you look at what's already on your own sleeve? People might think your owner forgot to put you on a leash." With that, I headed toward the elevator. Yun Tao looked down and saw that his own cufflinks were still on his sleeves, making his expression awkward. He remembered Yan Yu trying to give I her card at the restaurant and instantly became furious. He almost chased after I to question I, but then thought that once he drove me away, Yang Group would eventually belong to him anyway. Sitting in the office, I had no idea how absurd Yun Tao's imagination had become. When I checked, every notification was from my sister. "Xiaoquan, when are you going to expose him? You can't leave your sister out of a scene like this. Good little brother, you absolutely have to take me." I had no doubt that if I failed to reply, she would call I in the next second, so I answered, "Fine, fine. Sis, I'll definitely bring you when the time comes." That evening, I had a sweet dinner with Xiao Shi. The second I got home, my entire family surrounded I and declared that I had to bring them along too. I hadn't yet decided how to expose Yun Tao's false identity, but the man soon created his own disaster. On the day of bidding, a huge problem emerged. Yan Group's reserve bid price had been leaked. Supervisor Wang returned to the company with a dark expression and went directly to Xiao Shi's executive office. She entered the office, swept her eyes over everyone, and said coldly, "Everyone, gather here." When the whole department had assembled, Supervisor Wang said, "We lost this bid because someone in this department leaked confidential information. That person is among you." Everyone immediately began looking suspiciously at their co-workers. Without thinking, I looked toward Yun Tao and caught a fleeting trace of satisfaction on his face. My expression darkened. The instant everyone heard that I was the traitor, their expressions changed. Suddenly, Yun Tao's sarcastic voice rose from the crowd. "Xiaoquan, Xiaoquan, what did the company ever do to you that you had to do something like this?" With Yun Tao leading the accusation, several irritable employees began criticizing I too. I had already guessed that if Yun Tao designed a trap like this, he would certainly avoid leaving obvious evidence. Looking calmly at the smug Yun Tao, I asked, "Other than data found on my computer, is there any evidence proving I personally did this?" Yun Tao's expression stiffened. One new coworker who normally got along well with me immediately spoke up. "Even if the information was sent from Xiaoquan's computer, that doesn't prove Xiaoquan sent it himself. We should investigate properly before accusing an innocent person." Seeing his plan fail to progress smoothly, Yun Tao grew anxious. Gritting his teeth, he insisted, "Whatever you say, the information did leak from Xiaoquan's computer. Just because you say he didn't do it doesn't make him innocent." I studied him mockingly. "There hasn't even been a final conclusion yet. Yun Tao, why are you so eager to pin the crime on me? Could it be because you actually did it?" A trace of guilt flashed through his eyes, but he stubbornly denied it. "Impossible. Xiaoquan, don't try to dump your blame on me." Several people immediately stepped forward to defend him. "Xiaoquan, are you tired of living? Yun Tao is the young master of the Yun family. Why would he frame a poor nobody like you? Exactly. Are you even qualified to compare with him?" I looked coldly at them. "And who exactly are you to talk to me like that?" The Qing dynasty ended a long time ago and you're still dreaming. Then I studied the coworker who had called me poor. If I'm poor, what are you? If you really were, would you still be here working? Finally, I turned to the man who talked about status. Have you ever checked your own status? What level are you, high class or low class? The coworker stammered for several long beats before finally saying, anyway, young Master Yun wouldn't frame you. Oh, so you're just a brainless bootlicker. Then I smiled toward Yun Tao. Isn't that right, young Master Yun? Yun Tao loved the prestige the fake identity brought him, but he was terrified that anyone might discover he was not the real Yun Heir. Enough, Xiao Quan. We're discussing your leaking company's secrets. Right then, a familiar figure entered through the door. Wow, it's lively in here. What are you all discussing? I turned and was surprised to see my sister. Supervisor Wang hurried forward to greet her, but before she could speak, Yunxi said, did I just hear someone mention the young master of the Yun family? I heard the Yun family recently recovered their younger son after more than 20 years. Come on, let me see what this young master looks like. Everyone's gaze immediately landed on Yun Tao. Then he straightened his flashy suit, raised his chin, and proudly walked toward Yun Shi. He introduced himself. My name is Yun Tao. I'm the young master of the Yun family you were asking about. As I studied him, I felt as though I was watching a clown perform. Yunxi gave him an amused smile. You're the Yun family's young master? Yes, I am. Before Yun Tao could finish, a crisp slap rang through the office. Yun Tao stared at Yunxi in disbelief. You hit me. Yunxi casually smoothed her hair. Do you know my full name? Not only Yun Tao, but even Supervisor Wang looked confused. Yunxi slowly said, listen carefully. I am the eldest daughter of the Yun family, Yunxi. The instant he heard that, all color drained from Yun Tao's face. He had never imagined that the woman who had just slapped him was the Yun family's real eldest daughter, in other words, the biological sister of the young master, whose identity he had stolen. If nothing else had happened, perhaps Yun Tao could have invented another excuse. But not recognizing his supposed own sister was simply absurd. Gritting his teeth, he pointed first at me and then at Yunxi. You're not my sister at all. Maybe he hired you to pretend to be a member of the Yun family. Just because you claim to be Miss Yun doesn't make it true. Watching Yun Tao desperately bite at anyone nearby was almost funny. Yunxi noticed his nervous gestures but did not care. She snorted. I thought you had more brains than Ye Cheng. Apparently I overestimated you. Yun Tao gritted his teeth. Can you prove that you're really the eldest daughter of the Yun family? If you can't. Before he finished, an angry male voice sounded from behind. I can prove it. Yun Tao's eyelid twitched violently. My father, mother, and Yun Hao walked in from outside. When Yun Tao saw all three, his body swayed and he nearly fell. My mother elegantly held my father's arm. Yun Shi immediately went over affectionately. Dad, mom, brother, you came too. My father's cold gaze fell on the pale Yun Tao. Who did you just say you were? Yun Tao had been stubborn against Yun Shi, but facing my father he became mute. Yun Hao looked him up and down. So you're the one pretending to be my little brother? Are you even worthy? The sentence struck Yun Tao like another slap. Then an even more dramatic scene occurred. My father's cold expression suddenly transformed into warmth. Xiao Quan, come here to Dad. Yun Tao stared blankly. I sighed internally and gave him one last look. I originally wanted to interact with everyone as an ordinary person, but now, resignedly, I headed to my family. Dad, mom, brother, sister. As I greeted them one by one, sharp gasps sounded throughout the office. Yun Tao's eyes widened so much they nearly bulged out. His lips trembled before he finally managed. Xiao Quan, you're the young master the Yun family found? I gave him a calm glance. Yes. I have to admit, you really do know how to create irony. Hearing me expose his behavior in front of my whole family made Yun Tao even paler. While running, he began complaining. Darling, you finally came. These people have gone too far. Yun Tao failed to notice how stiff Yan Yu looked or how guilty she seemed. Only then did he notice another beautiful woman walking behind Yan Yu, Xiao Shi. The instant he saw Xiao Shi, Yun Tao stared in amazement. Yan Yu's expression darkened at his infatuated look, but in front of Xiao Shi she dared not say anything and only tugged nervously at his arm. Yun Tao had never met Xiao Shi before and assumed she was some important client. He was already imagining that once he publicly became the husband of Yan Group's president, he would have many future opportunities to meet this beautiful woman. Yan Yu gritted her teeth and whispered, Yun Tao, do you remember that you're only a pretty boy I pay to keep? Yun Tao reluctantly pulled his eyes away. Xiao Shi was beautiful, but compared with the position of husband to Yan Group's president, wealth and status seemed more important. Then he grabbed Yan Yu's hand and continued complaining. Baby, you've to help me. They're bullying me. He theatrically listed his grievances. He glanced at her and found her face filled with embarrassment, a bead of cold sweat sliding down her forehead. Baby, what's wrong? Yan Yu looked at him but could not form a sentence. Assistant Li snorted. If Manager Yan can't say it, I'll explain. Before she could continue, Yun Tao interrupted arrogantly. You're only an assistant. My darling is the president of Yan Group. Xiao Shi's cool voice cut him off. Really? I don't remember giving my company to someone else. Yun Tao's eyes widened. He looked back and forth between Xiao Shi and Yan Yu, then abruptly pushed Yan Yu away. Yan Yu, aren't you the president of Yan Group? Embarrassment flashed across Yan Yu's face. Then she turned on Yun Tao. When did I ever tell you I was president of Yan Group? Don't blame everything on me. Even someone as shameless as Yun Tao was stunned by her shamelessness. I misunderstood. The first time we met, you told me you were President Yan. Yan, you sneered. That day, you were the one who mistook me for President Yan first. Besides, weren't you at that party specifically to hook a rich older woman? When Yun Tao tried to argue, she snapped. Yun Tao, dare to say you weren't there looking for a rich woman? You told me you were the young master of the Yun family. Yun Tao was left speechless. No wonder Yan Yu always told him not to show off too much at the company and refused to let anyone know she was supposedly dating President Yan. Suddenly Yun Tao shouted and swung his hand at Yan Yu's face. She lunged at Yun Tao. You damn pretty boy. I'll scratch you to death. Before anyone could react, the two were wrestling violently. Although Yan Yu was a woman, she fought just as fiercely as Yun Tao. Xiao Shi said coldly to Assistant Li. Tomorrow, I don't want to see either of these two in the company again. Assistant Li nodded. Yes, President Yan. Yun Tao and Yan Yu, who had still been struggling, went limp when they heard her words and nearly collapsed to the floor. But I stepped forward. Wait. We still haven't settled Yun Tao framing me for leaking company secrets. Yun Tao's body trembled. He knew he was finished, but then he suddenly thought of something and challenged Xiao Quan, you've no evidence proving I leaked it, do you? He was right. I didn't have hard evidence and therefore could not directly punish him for that accusation. Right then, however, Xiao Shi walked to my side and naturally linked her arm with mine. As I studied Yun Tao, she said, as long as my Xiao Quan is happy, it was only a project worth tens of millions. If it's lost, it's lost. Everyone present had only one thought. President Yan was truly generous. Then again, Xiao Shi was the eldest daughter of an elite wealthy family. Losing that amount truly would not ruin her. As I studied Xiao Shi holding my arm, Yun Tao's eyes turned red with jealousy. After that day, the fact that I was the Yun family's real young master spread throughout Yan Group. Along with it spread countless rumors about me and Xiao Shi. Once Yun Tao's matter was handled, Xiao Shi proposed transferring I to work directly beside her, but I refused. Working beside her would have been easier, would let the two of me see each other constantly perfect for a couple still deeply in love. However, after my identity became public, Xiao Shi was probably the happiest person of all. One noon, Xiao Shi clearly noticed that my mood seemed low. What's wrong, Xiao Quan? Did something happen? I smiled. Nothing. Let's eat. After lunch, Xiao Shi returned to her office and locked the door. Looking up curiously, she asked, Xiao Quan, did something happen? If you don't mind, you can tell me. I tightened my arms around her. Xiao Shi, do you think I'm the kind of person who goes looking for hardship? Xiao Shi paused, then smiled softly. Why would you ask that? I rubbed the back of my neck. I'm already the young master of a wealthy family. I don't lack food or money, yet I insist on being independent and relying on myself. Then before I've even achieved anything, I keep making you and the family help me clean up problems. Xiao Shi laughed gently, sat up, and patted my head. Then why did you insist on relying on yourself in the first place? I wanted to explain but could not find the right words. After a long hesitation, I finally said, I want to become someone who can stand beside you as an equal. Do you understand what I mean? Xiao Shi looked deeply at me, then suddenly leaned forward and kissed my cheek. Of course I understand. I'm not that easy to catch up with. As I studied the adorable Xiao Shi before I smiled and nodded. Then I asked, Xiao Shi, are you sleepy? She looked at me curiously, then nodded. Actually, I am a little tired. I stroked her head. Then sleep for a while. I'll wake you later. Xiao Shi nodded. I studied her sleeping face, gently laid her on the lounge bed, found a spot beside her, and also fell asleep. She quietly left the lounge and returned to the main office, then sent Assistant Li a message. Come to my office. Assistant Li arrived quickly. Xiao Shi said, call the sales department supervisor up here. Assistant Li nodded and immediately made an internal call. I slept for a while in Xiao Shi's lounge and returned to the sales office before afternoon work began. On previous days, Xiao Shi usually waited in the car while doing paperwork. I joked, President Yan, have you already finished working, or have you not started yet? Xiao Shi had been resting with her eyes closed. She smiled. You're in a good mood. I gave a small nod and kissed her. Thank you, Xiao Shi. Her eyes narrowed playfully as one hand stroked my back. If you want to thank me, that isn't enough. At minimum, it should be like this. Then she directly kissed my lips. By the time I arrived home, I was still smiling. My mother and Yun Shi looked at my expression and helplessly sighed. Meanwhile, during dinner next door, Xiao Shi kept her head lowered, avoiding her parents' eyes. In the car earlier, the two of I had kissed for so long that her lips were still slightly swollen when she returned. Her mother and Yan Yang were delighted, but her father, a devoted daughter-dad, wore a wonderfully complicated expression when he saw her lips. After thinking for a very long time, he finally spoke. Xiao Shi. She looked up. Her father hesitated, then seemed to make a difficult decision. Dad knows you really like Xiao Quan. You two have an engagement and will eventually marry. But before the wedding, Dad hopes that if there's one final line you don't need to cross yet, then don't cross it. Understand? Though he spoke indirectly, Xiao Shi still choked at the sudden topic and coughed until her face turned red from embarrassment or coughing. No one knew. Yang Yang sat nearby trying not to laugh until his mother's warning glance silenced him. Once Xiao Shi recovered, she put down her cup and seriously told her father, Dad, don't worry. Besides kissing, hugging, and sleeping in the same bed, we haven't done anything else." Her father's eyes brightened. The corner of his mouth almost rose before he noticed his wife's gaze and forced himself to look serious. I'm very relieved." Yan Yang silently rolled his eyes. He certainly did not look relieved. Then, Xiaoxi's father remembered something important. "Right, in 1 month, Grandpa will celebrate his 80th birthday. He wants a relatively simple banquet and, at the same time," his gaze fell on Xiaoxi. Seeing the question marks in her eyes, he continued, "Announce publicly that you and Xiaoquan are engaged." Xiaoxi froze. "Engaged?" Her father nodded. "Now that Xiaoquan has returned to the Yun family, your childhood engagement can officially move forward. Grandpa is worried he may not live long enough to see the two of you marry, so he wants to settle things earlier." Moreover, Xiaoxi's father knew Xiaoquan was genuinely a good man, worthy of entrusting his daughter to. So, despite being reluctant to let Xiaoxi leave so early, he agreed with the elders. At least it was only an engagement, not a wedding, which made him feel somewhat better. When Yungxi learned that the old master planned to announce her brother's engagement to Xiaoxi during his 80th birthday banquet, she was reluctant in 1,000 ways. As sour as Yungxi felt, if her little brother could be happy, that was enough. Compared with my mother and sister's reluctance, my father and Yunhao were enthusiastically delighted. The two immediately pulled me aside and began discussing clothes and arrangements as though no one else existed. "There's still a whole month. Xiaoquan, Dad will find the best designer to custom make your formal wear." "Exactly. Brother will find the best team and prepare a grand engagement ceremony for you." I listened from the side but were thinking of something else. Since old Master Yan's 80th birthday was coming, and I was Xiaoxi's future husband, should I prepare a special gift for him? That night, I went straight to Xiaoxi's room to ask her. To avoid an embarrassing encounter when Xiaoxi finished showering, I decided to sneak back to my room and return later. Meanwhile, Xiaoxi finally returned to the bedroom and immediately noticed a suspicious lump on her bed. Xiaoxi watched the blanket wriggle from side to side and could barely contain her smile. Then I said with exaggerated righteousness, "Xiaoxi, if I told you I saw a flea jump onto your bed and crawled in here to look for it, would you believe me?" Xiaoxi paused and laughed. "Do you think I would believe that?" Seeing her obvious disbelief, I decided there was no point pretending anymore. I abruptly sat up, pulled Xiaoxi onto the bed, and pinned her beneath eye with a mischievous grin. Xiaoxi had not expected me to be this bold. As I studied Xiaoxi's beautiful face only inches away, I slowly lowered my head. Just before my lips touched, her bedroom door suddenly opened. "Xiaoxi, do you have a moment? Mom wants to talk to you." The moment misses. Before leaving, she looked back and said, "Xiaoquan, Auntie didn't see anything. Continue." Then she thoughtfully closed the door for me. I stared after her helplessly, then awkwardly looked down at Xiaoxi, who was still stunned beneath eye. Xiaoxi, should we continue?" Xiaoxi finally recovered and covered her face with both hands. I chuckled, rolled onto the bed beside her, and pulled her hands away. Hey, will you dare tempt me like that next time?" Xiaoxi glared. "You're still talking? Xiaoquan, you're getting cheekier and cheekier." I surrendered. Fine. My fault." Then I confidently added, "Don't worry. Auntie likes me so much she might actually hope I do this." Xiaoxi turned her head away in mock anger. "You already dare behave like this before marriage. What will happen after?" Then she smiled at me. "But in 1 month, we'll be officially engaged." I studied her curiously. "You know about it too?" Xiaoxi nodded. I asked, "I heard Grandpa Yan was the one who proposed it." Xiaoxi smiled. "No." I became even more curious. "Is there something I don't know?" Hugging me, Xiaoxi confessed, "I was the one who went to Grandpa and suggested it." I stared in shock. "You proposed the engagement?" Xiaoxi nodded. "Yes." Grandpa was happy to agree. That was when I realized the entire arrangement had actually been her idea. Once I processed the news, I remembered my protective sister. "By the way, you'd better not let my sister find out, or..." Xiaoxi snuggled deeper into my arms. "Is Xiaoquan worried about me?" I pouted and pretended indifference. "No, I'm definitely not worried you'll be chased around by my sister carrying a kitchen knife." I and Xiaoxi looked at each other and laughed. To avoid another interruption like the earlier one, I decided I should probably stop lingering in Xiaoxi's bedroom. As I started to stand, I noticed that the towel around Xiaoxi had slipped below one shoulder, exposing a large patch of pale skin. My pulse started hammering uncontrollably, and, without thinking, I swallowed. Seeing my obvious stare, Xiaoxi lightly smacked eye. "What are you looking at?" I swallowed again and turned away. "Xiaoxi, seriously, you're an adult. How can you not even wear your clothes properly?" Xiaoxi smiled without exposing her intentions. I coughed. Why don't you change first and then we talk? It's difficult for me to keep my thoughts completely pure while facing that figure." Xiaoxi glanced at me and nodded. "Fine. Wait here." She walked toward the dressing room. Honestly, if I wanted, one slight lean would let me watch her change, but I resisted and tried hard to calm myself. "Xiaoquan, I'm done." I turned and saw Xiaoxi wearing a black silk pajama set. Xiaoxi pulled me beside her and sat directly on my lap. "Why did you suddenly come over tonight?" Only then did I remember my real purpose. Watching how seriously I treated her family, Xiaoxi could not suppress her smile. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Grandpa actually has one gift he wants more than anything." When I heard that, I perked up immediately. "What? Tell me quickly." I seemed to have forgotten Xiaoxi was sitting on my lap. Her voice became shy. Stop moving around and I'll tell you. Otherwise. My expression froze as I finally realized the awkward situation. My face turned bright red and my entire body became rigid, no longer daring to move. She leaned to my ear and said seductively, "Looks like Xiao Quan is very satisfied with my figure." My mouth twitched. "Okay, stop teasing me. Tell me what Grandpa likes." Xiaoxi grinned mischievously and stroked my cheek. "Grandpa wants a great-grandchild." "Xiao Quan, what do you think?" Before she could finish, I abruptly stood up, causing Xiaoxi to tumble onto the bed. She stared at me in confusion. "Xiao Quan, you're not really going to." Before she could finish, I fled the room at full speed. Meanwhile, Xiaoxi sat on her bed handling documents on her laptop. It was her mother. "Mom, why are you here, Mrs.?" Seeing no sign of me, she asked, "Did Xiao Quan go back?" Xiaoxi blushed. He left a while ago." Her mother looked disappointed. "It's nothing. I just came to discuss your engagement with Xiao Quan." Xiaoxi was surprised, but the moment she heard it was about my engagement, she sat beside her mother to listen. The Yan couple would be busy organizing Old Master Yan's birthday celebration, so the engagement preparations would largely be handled by the Yun family. Old Master Yun valued Xiaoxi very highly as his future granddaughter-in-law, so the ceremony would certainly be grand. The families had agreed to let Yunhao coordinate the event, and Mrs. Xiaoxi nodded. "Okay, I understand. It's my engagement to Xiao Quan, so of course I'll take it seriously." Both Xiaoxi and Yunhao were seriously busy, so they quickly agreed to hire a professional planning team. When Yunhao explained this to me, my entire body went numb. The wicked power of capitalism. For some time afterward, I thought constantly about what gift to give Old Master Yan, but nothing felt right. Finally, one day, I decisively dragged Youngsi out shopping with me. Youngsi spotted several items she thought could work as gifts, but I rejected them one after another. The second I arrived, my mother pulled me into a room where two fashion designers had already been waiting for quite some time. Xiaoxi had an urgent meeting and departed shortly afterward. My mother looked at me curiously. "Xiao Quan, did you find a gift you're satisfied with?" I shook my head. "Not yet. Nothing feels suitable." She smiled and patted my shoulder. "It's okay. But honestly, anything from his future grandson-in-law will make him happy. He's extremely satisfied with you." Youngshi nodded in agreement. I smiled. "I know what I'm going to give Grandpa Yan." My mother blinked. "What gift?" I smiled mysteriously. "You'll find out later." The next day after lunch at the company, I and Xiaoxi rested in her private lounge. Holding her in my arms, I said softly, "Xiaoxi, I want to take a day off." She looked curious. "Why? Did something happen?" I gave a small nod and shook my head at the same time. "Sort of, but not exactly." Xiaoxi became even more curious. "Then what is it?" I organized my thoughts. "I finally figured out Grandpa's gift." Then I lowered my voice mysteriously. "But it's something I can only get by going back to Huacheng. So, President Yan, can I have 1 day of leave?" The moment Xiaoxi heard that I was going to Huacheng, she frowned and wrapped an arm around my waist. "Do you need me to go with you?" I stared at her happily. "Do you have time?" Seeing my expectant face, Xiaoxi smiled. "Kiss me and I'll tell you." Laughing, I kissed her cheek. Besides, the company won't go bankrupt because I disappear for 1 day. Otherwise, what am I paying all those employees for? I gave a small nod. "Then tomorrow. The sooner the better." "Okay, I'll have Assistant Lee book the tickets." After returning home from work, I told my family that I was going to Huacheng. When they heard I was preparing a birthday gift for Old Master Yan, everyone relaxed. The next day, I and Xiaoxi boarded a flight to Huacheng. The second I left the airport, I saw someone holding a large sign reading, "Welcome young Master Xiao Quan back to Huacheng." My toes practically curled through the floor from embarrassment. I wanted to crawl into a hole. Xiaoxi stood beside me, covering her mouth and laughing nonstop. Once inside, Xiaoxi asked, "Hotel first, or straight to the place you mentioned?" I thought about it. "Let's go there first. I need to make sure it still exists." An hour later, the car stopped outside an old residential neighborhood. Xiaoxi squeezed my hand. "Xiao Quan, where do we go next?" I smiled mysteriously. "No hurry. First, I'll take you somewhere delicious." I led Xiaoxi through a narrow alley until I reached a small noodle shop. I turned to her. "Xiaoxi, don't judge the place by how small it looks. The food here is incredible." She smiled gently. "Did you come here often as a child?" I gave a small nod, slipping into memories. "Yeah. The owner took really good care of Grandma and me. Every time we came, he always gave us extra." Xiaoxi listened and nodded thoughtfully. "If this is the taste of Xiao Quan's childhood, then I definitely have to try it properly." She pulled me to a table. The second I sat down, I eagerly shouted, "Boss, 2 bowls of beef noodles, please." 2 bowls? Coming right up. I had been a little nervous that someone of Xiaoxi's status might look down on such a tiny restaurant, but she merely rested her chin on her hand, smiled at me. The moment he saw me, his face lit up. "Xiao Quan, you haven't come by in ages." I smiled. "I moved to the capital." The owner set down the bowls and slapped his forehead. "Look at my memory. I forgot your biological parents came to take you home. Are they treating you well?" Then he curiously looked toward Xiaozi. I answered, "They treat me very well." The owner relaxed. "Good, good. And this young lady is?" Before I could introduce her, Xiaoxi smiled. "Hello, boss. My name is Yan Xiaoxi." The owner laughed. "So you're this kid's fiancé? You two look very well matched. Even the normally reserved Xiaoxi showed a warm smile to this stranger. Thank you. I secretly smiled at the side. The owner looked at me with the affection of an elder toward a younger person. Then I won't disturb you two lovebirds. I'll get back to work. Once he left, I turned to Xiaoxi, still smiling. Try it. It's really good. Then I eagerly picked up a thick slice of beef and ate it, followed by mouthfuls of noodles. Watching my enjoyment, Xiaoxi also picked up her chopsticks and tried a bite. After finishing my bowl, I studied Xiaoxi. I curled my right hand into a fist like a microphone and cleared my throat. Now, Miss Yan Xiaoxi, please review the noodles you just ate. How did they taste? Xiaoxi smiled and played along. Anything Xiaoquan recommends tastes good. Inside, I was delighted, though I pretended calm. That's because the boss genuinely cooks well. Xiaoxi rested her chin on her hand and looked at me. She could tell that after returning to Huacheng, my mood had become much brighter. Xiaoquan is right. When Xiaoxi gazed at me so tenderly, my heartbeat unconsciously sped up. Just then, the owner came back to clear the table. How was it? Could you get used to the taste? He was clearly asking Xiaoxi. I smiled. She just told me it was delicious. The owner nodded happily. Good. Xiaoquan, what brought you back this time? Only then did I remember the real purpose of my trip. I might as well ask him first. Boss, does Grandpa Yu still live in the same place? The owner nodded. Yes. Did you return to visit him? I gave a small nod. Partly. I also need to ask Grandpa Yu to help me with something. He should be at his shop around this time. Just go there directly. Okay, thank you. After filling my stomachs, I and Xiaoxi prepared to leave. I tried to pay, but the owner refused. It's only 2 bowls of noodles. Oh wait. He disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a sealed jar of braised beef, handing it to me. I don't know when you're leaving, so take this beef with you and eat it on the way. Holding the large jar, warmth filled my chest. Thank you, boss. He sighed emotionally. What are you thanking me for? And take care of yourself out there. Moved, I stepped forward and hugged him. I will, definitely. I and Xiaoxi exchanged a glance, then left the little shop. He froze, then laughed. That kid is still exactly the same as before. It turned out Xiaoxi had secretly scanned the payment QR code at the counter when the owner was not watching, paid the exact cost of both the noodles and the jar of beef. Outside, Xiaoxi held my arm and smiled. The owner truly cares about you. I couldn't let him lose money because of us. As I studied her, I smiled. Carrying such a large jar around would be inconvenient, so I first placed it in the car, then took Xiaoxi's hand and walked in another direction. When I passed the entrance of my old university, Xiaoxi suddenly stopped and stared at the gate, lost in thought. I stood beside her and looked at the closed entrance. What's wrong? Xiaoxi said. I heard Gu Shihan was your junior at university. I hadn't heard that name in a long time and felt briefly dazed. Yeah. Why? So this is where she confessed to you. I studied the university gate, then at Xiaoxi's seriously serious expression, and suddenly laughed. So, Xiaoxi is digging up old accounts? Or, I stepped forward, hugged her, and leaned to her ear. Is Xiaoxi jealous? Her ears turned red, but she still looked at me seriously. Yes. You need to comfort me. Seeing her acting spoiled, I pulled her directly into my arms. Caught off guard, Xiaoxi bumped against my chest, instinctively placing both hands there. Xiaoxi unconsciously swallowed, and a spark flashed through her eyes. Thinking I was going to kiss her, Xiaoxi closed her eyes. She pouted and moved closer. Xiaoquan, I'm jealous. Comfort me. I paused, then laughed. How does Xiaoxi want me to comfort her? She offered her cheek. I kissed it. Like this? Xiaoxi frowned slightly. Not quite enough. I kissed the other cheek. What about this? She shook her head. Still a little short. Seeing the laughter in her eyes, I chuckled. Xiaoxi, don't push your luck. Then I wrapped her tightly in my arms and kissed her lips. Satisfied now, Xiaoxi's lips curved upward, but her gaze shifted to somewhere behind me. Okay, don't we still need to find Grandpa Yu? She linked her arm through mine, and the two of me walked away lightly. I noticed Xiaoxi glanced backward and curiously looked too, but saw nothing. Xiaoxi, what were you looking at? She replied, I saw a huge rat run past, so I was curious. That only made me more curious. How huge? Xiaoxi rolled her eyes and pushed me forward. Go. Why do you care about some giant rat? I protested, but I'm genuinely curious how big it was. Xiaoxi said nothing. Xiaoxi looked at the jars and ceramic pieces outside, then up at the sign reading Old Yu's pottery. Curious, she asked, does Grandpa Yu live here? No, this is the pottery shop he runs. I took her hand and led her inside. He sprang up from his chair. Xiaoquan? My old eyes aren't playing tricks on me, are they? I released Xiaoxi's hand and hurried toward him. Grandpa, it's me. I came back to visit you. A smile appeared on his face, but the very next second he deliberately scowled. How many months has it been since you last visited? I knew Grandpa Yu's temper too well, and understood that he was genuinely unhappy. I had been away so long. Grandpa Yu had his own sons, daughters, and several grandchildren, yet he had always been especially fond of me. After learning that my grandmother had found me abandoned on the roadside, he cared for me even more. Once I finally coaxed him into a better mood, he smiled toward Xiaoxi. Kid, aren't you going to introduce this young lady to Grandpa? I walked over smiling and took Xiaoxi's hand. Her name is Yan Xiaoxi. She's my fiancé. Xiaoxi politely greeted him. Hello, Grandpa Yu. The old man smiled at the two of me and nodded repeatedly. Good, good. You two really are well matched. As he smiled, his eyes became slightly wet. Then he looked back at me. Okay, kid. What did you really come back to ask Grandpa for? I rubbed the back of my neck. Grandpa, I do have something I need your help with. He wore an expression that said he knew it. Tell me, what do you want Grandpa to do? Xiaoxi's grandfather is about to celebrate his 80th birthday. I want you to teach us how to make a small handmade gift for him. Only then did Xiaoxi finally understand that I had traveled all the way back to Huaqing because I wanted to personally make a birthday present for her grandfather. Her heart warmed. Grandpa will definitely like a gift, Xiaoquan made himself. Then she turned to Grandpa Yu. Please teach us, Grandpa. Grandpa Yu looked at me and then at Xiaoxi. I suggested that Xiaoxi return to the capital first. When she came back, she waved her phone and smiled. I took 7 days off. I'll stay here with you. I stared at her in surprise. You're the president. Who do you even ask for leave? Xiaoxi came over and took my hand. Of course, I asked my dad. When he heard I wanted leave just to stay with you, he struggled for quite a while before agreeing. I stared at her, struggling to process it. You're really staying with me? Xiaoxi nodded, slipped into my arms, and deliberately looked wounded. Does Xiaoquan not want me to stay? I shook my head. That's not it. I just thought your company was too busy for you to stay with me. Her gaze became gentle. As long as I'm with Xiaoquan, even major matters can wait. I smiled. Okay, let's go inside. Taking her hand, I went back to the work table. I and Xiaozi sat like two model students listening to his lesson. Xiaoquan, have you decided what to make? I gave a small nod. I heard Grandpa Yan likes tea, so I want to make a pair of teacups. Why not an entire tea set? Grandpa Yu nodded. Making teacups isn't too difficult. I had always thought I was reasonably quick to learn and fairly good with my hands. But a few hours later, I stared at the miserable lump in front of me and felt deeply embarrassed. Xiaoxi's attempt was not beautiful either. But somehow, it was much better than mine. Grandpa Yu stared at both pieces, his white eyebrows almost knitting together. This craftsmanship. I and Xiaoxi exchanged awkward glances. I asked, Grandpa, is there any hope for us? He sighed. Forget it. Go rest. I and Xiaoxi looked toward the door and only then. Notice how dark it had become outside. It's this late already? I helped Grandpa Yu clean the shop before leaving. Before coming to Huaqing, I had already asked the family butler to reserve a hotel. After seeing Grandpa Yu home, I and Xiaoxi ate dinner at a restaurant, then returned to the hotel. Back in her room, Xiaoxi took clothes into the bathroom. The hotel location was private. Almost no one except I knew exactly where she was staying. Then Xiaoxi seemed to think of something, and the corners of her mouth slowly rose. Meanwhile, I was lying on my bed watching pottery tutorials when several strange messages from Xiaoxi appeared. Stories about girls staying alone in hotels, strange men secretly entering rooms, and strangers forcing their way inside at night. While I was still confused, Xiaoxi called. Xiaoquan, I think there's a bad person outside my door. I jumped out of bed and rushed from my room. The second I opened my door, I saw a suspicious man crouched near Xiaoxi's room. Xiaoxi came outside shortly afterward, and soon the police arrived to take him away. I opened it and saw Xiaoxi wearing silk pajamas and hugging a pillow. I just stared. Xiaoxi, what are you doing? She immediately put on a frightened expression. Xiaoquan, I'm a little scared. I don't dare sleep alone. Then she looked at me expectantly. Can I sleep with you? As I studied Xiaoxi in pajamas, without thinking, I swallowed. Thinking I was unwilling to share a room, she muttered quietly. It's not like we haven't slept together before. I'm not going to do anything to you. Her voice was soft, but I heard every word. Seeing her aggrieved expression, I finally sighed. Okay, come in. Xiaoxi happily stepped inside, but the moment she entered, I pinned her lightly against the wall. Xiaoxi, do you understand what telling a man you want to sleep beside him can mean to him? As I studied my expression, Xiaoxi's cheeks slowly reddened. Did I say that? Don't falsely accuse me. The more I studied her, the cuter she seemed. Xiaoxi was still preparing to say something when I leaned in and kissed her against the wall. Xiaoxi seemed to feel my reaction, and her face turned even redder. We can't yet. My movements paused for a second. She suddenly realized she might have teased too far. Xiaoquan, don't talk yet. Let me calm down. Xiaoxi froze for a long moment, and her cheeks became even hotter. Though she had never experienced anything beyond kisses and hugs, she was not completely ignorant. She had promised her father that she would not take the relationship any further before marriage. But if some unexpected situation truly happened, after thinking seriously, Xiaoxi reached one conclusion. She might actually be willing. When I finally lifted my head, I saw Xiaoxi's face flushed and a strange smile at her lips. I kissed her cheek. What are you thinking about? Xiaoxi recovered and looked at me. I was thinking, if you wanted to. Actually, halfway through the sentence, she suddenly realized what she was saying, covered her mouth, and laughed awkwardly. I said nothing. Before she could continue, I gently pushed her down onto the bed and kissed her once. Go to sleep. I'm taking a shower. Then I hurried into the bathroom. After I disappeared inside, Xiaoxi looked down at her own pajamas, sat up for a while, then slowly lay back down. When I finally returned to the bedroom, Xiaoxi had already fallen asleep. I stroked her head. Good night. The next morning, the second I opened my eyes, I saw Xiaoxi's bright eyes watching me. I tightened my arms around her. Why didn't you sleep longer? She smiled. I've slept enough. I can't fall back asleep. Sunlight streamed through the window. Holding Xiaoxi in my arms, I felt a deep sense of peaceful contentment. I took Xiaoxi to a breakfast shop near Grandpa Yu's pottery studio. The proprietress looked delighted when she saw me, but the instant she noticed Xiaoxi beside me, her face shifted slightly. I didn't notice and cheerfully said, "Auntie, the usual 3 items for me." She smiled and quickly served my familiar breakfast. Her gaze returned to Xiaozi. "Xiaoquan, is this your new girlfriend?" I paused, then shook my head and answered seriously, "She's my fiancé." The proprietress asked in surprise, "You and Gu Shihan broke up?" The moment the words left her mouth, she realized they were inappropriate and looked apologetic. "Auntie didn't mean." I smiled. "It's okay. Gu Shihan and I broke up a long time ago." The proprietress seemed as though she wanted to say more but eventually turned away to work. Although the woman had spoken unintentionally, I still carefully watched Xiaoxi's expression. I had never hidden my previous relationship with Gu Shihan from her. Xiaoxi had even seen I at my most miserable. Still, I nervously said, "Xiaoxi." She smiled calmly. "Didn't you say you were hungry on the way here?" "Eat." When I tried to continue, she picked up a steamed dumpling and placed it directly into my mouth. "I told you, I'm not angry and I don't mind." "All of that is already in the past, isn't it?" I gave a small nod vigorously while chewing. It's all in the past." Then, looking at her serious expression, I said, "I didn't expect Auntie to suddenly mention." I smiled. Without warning, I pulled Xiaoxi close and kissed her lips. "Xiaoxi, in my present and my future, the only person beside me will be you." Xiaoxi's cheeks reddened. Xiaoxi turned away. "Eat your own food. Stop fussing over me." The two of me quickly finished breakfast and packed another portion for Grandpa Yu. Seeing my interlocked fingers, he snorted. "I know you two are affectionate. Do you have to show off in front of this old man?" I released Xiaoxi's hand and cheerfully put an arm around Grandpa Yu's shoulders. "Grandpa, how could I? Come eat." Grandpa Yu glanced at the bag in Xiaoxi's hand and snorted again. "At least you still have some conscience and remember what I like." "Of course I remember." "Grandpa, let's go inside and eat." I winked at Xiaoxi behind me while walking into the shop with the old man. Xiaoxi smiled faintly and followed, carrying the decidedly un-CEO-like breakfast bag. Then I studied Xiaoxi's work and had to admit that some things really depended on talent. He had not expected her to improve so much in only 2 days. "Your fiancé really is a quick learner." Then he looked at my piece. You're not too bad either." My face became awkward, while Xiaoxi remained humble. "Grandpa teaches well." Everyone liked compliments, Grandpa Yu included. "You little girls certainly know how to make an old man happy." I studied my own piece again. I cautiously asked, "Grandpa, is there still hope for my craftsmanship?" Grandpa Yu smiled and glanced toward Xiaoxi. "With your fiancé here, are you really worried you won't make anything decent?" My gaze also fell on Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi noticed my expression and turned to Grandpa Yu. "Grandpa is right. With both Grandpa and me teaching you, how could one student be impossible?" I and Xiaoxi had both started pottery for the first time and studied under the same teacher. How had Xiaoxi become my teacher after only 2 days? 1 week later, looking at the delicate teacups before I sighed with satisfaction. I told you I had talent. There were still only unfired pieces. The remaining firing process would be handled by Grandpa Yu. Several days later, I and Xiaoxi prepared to leave with the finished fired teacups. Before I went, Grandpa Yu handed me a beautifully wrapped box. "Grandpa is old and doesn't like traveling far. Please give this gift to old Master Yan for me." I looked curiously at the box. "Grandpa, do you know Grandpa Yan?" He shook his head. "No. Come back and see Grandpa when you've time." Goodbyes were always painful. I hugged him tightly. "Grandpa." He laughed and patted my back with his rough hand. Okay. Don't you still have a plane to catch?" Grandpa Yu stood at the mouth of the alley and quietly watched my car drive away. Seeing this, Xiaoxi moved closer, gently nestled into my arms, and said, "If you miss Grandpa Yu, we can send someone to bring him to the capital for a while." I studied her. "Grandpa is old and doesn't like leaving home. Would he really travel that far just for me?" Xiaoxi pinched my cheek. "How will you know unless you try?" I gave a small nod and quickly recovered my spirits. "You're right, we'll try next time." Compared with Grandpa Yu's own children and grandchildren, I had actually spent more time around him and understood his personality well. For as long as I could remember, he had run that little pottery shop. As for the gift box Grandpa Yu gave me, I took it straight to my room after returning home. Since it was meant as old Master Yan's birthday gift and the birthday man himself had not opened it, I didn't feel it was right to peek. The birthday banquet was held at a hotel rather than the Yan family residence. On the day of the celebration, almost all of the capital's prominent families gathered in the hotel ballroom. 3 younger men sat beside him, Yun Hao, I, and Yan Yang. The moment Yan Yang saw me, he started asking about my relationship with his sister. When he learned that Grandpa planned to announce my engagement to Xiaoxi during the birthday banquet, he became even more excited. "Brother-in-law, when are you going to marry my sister? I'm waiting to become an uncle." At those words, Xiaoxi's father and Yunxi both darkened in expression. As a daughter-loving father and an overly protective sister, both of them would prefer the wedding to happen later rather than sooner. As everyone waited for an answer, their gazes turned toward Xiaoxi. She looked at her father, whose expression was almost tearful, and slowly replied, We'll see how things go." Her father and Yunxi visibly sighed in relief. while everyone else remained relatively calm. Xiaoxi noticed that I hadn't spoken and mistakenly thought I was unhappy. I caught every tiny expression on the face of the woman I loved, and could easily guess that she was already worrying about how to explain herself. I and Xiaoxi deliberately fell one step behind and walked at the very back. Yunxi noticed and looked as though she wanted to say something, but Yan Yang quickly grabbed her arm. Before going, she secretly gave Xiaoxi a look that seemed to ask whether her little brother could be trusted with her. I and Xiaoxi walked behind everyone without speaking at first. I was waiting for her to talk, while Xiaoxi was still thinking about how to explain what had happened earlier. The familiar touch immediately calmed her. "Xiaoxi," I said softly, back in the lounge. "You don't need to explain why you said in front of everyone that we didn't have to rush into marriage." Xiaoxi froze, then nodded. "Xiao Quan, the engagement was something I proposed to Grandpa, but my dad and your sister." I let out a laugh, slipped an arm around her waist, and said, "Xiaoxi, people who understand you don't need an explanation. As long as you're willing, I don't care how long I have to wait before marrying you." As I studied my serious face, Xiaoxi's heartbeat quickened. She nodded. "Okay, then I'll wait until my Xiao Quan comes to marry me." I lowered my head and gently kissed her forehead. "My Xiaoxi looks so beautiful today. I can't ruin your lipstick." Understanding what I meant, Xiaoxi blushed. Fortunately, both of me still remembered that today was Old Master Yan's 80th birthday. Lingered outside for only a short time. I felt slightly awkward, but Xiaoxi beside me remained perfectly composed. Right then, her father's voice came through the microphone. "Thank you, everyone, for coming to celebrate my father's 80th birthday. Besides the old master's birthday, the Yan family also has another happy announcement today." After saying this, he looked at me and Xiaoxi with a complicated expression. "Xiaoxi, Xiao Quan, come over here." I took several deep breaths and extended my hand toward Xiaoxi. He smiled and addressed the guests. "Today brings double happiness. Not only are we celebrating the old master's 80th birthday, but today is also the engagement of my daughter Xiaoqi and the Yun family's younger son. The childhood engagement between the Yan family's eldest daughter, the Yun family's younger son, had never been a secret in the capital's upper-class circles. But before I was recovered by the Yun family, and since Yun Hao had never wanted to marry Xiaoxi, many wealthy young men who dreamed of becoming the Yan family's son-in-law had believed they still had a chance. Now, however, everyone could see the smile on Xiaoxi's face. Even if the two of me announced a wedding within days, no one would be surprised. Congratulations immediately sounded around the room. Young Master Yun and Miss Yan are a match made in heaven. Exactly. They look perfect standing together. My father and Xiaoxi's father happily accepted everyone's congratulations, while both mothers smiled so brightly they looked like blooming flowers. Yun Hao noticed and nudged her arm. "Is it really necessary? Are you unhappy that Xiao Quan found someone who genuinely loves him?" Yun Shi glanced at Yun Hao, finding his cheerful face irritating. "Why didn't you ever fall for Xiaoxi back then?" "Stop right there. If you've time to think about nonsense like that, why don't you find me a brother-in-law?" "Isn't that embarrassing?" Young Shi rolled her eyes. "As if you found anyone? Terminally single." Then she smiled mischievously. "I'm charming. I could stop being single whenever I want." Yun Hao's expression immediately hardened. "Don't you dare. If you get a boyfriend, I have to inspect him first." Young Shi waved dismissively. Fine, fine. "If I really start dating someone, you'll be the first to know, dear brother." Only then did Yun Hao relax. He looked at Yunxi and then at me, who were smiling happily nearby. "You're both my younger siblings. Your brother only wants you two to live well." Yunxi's expression became a little more serious. She linked her arm through his. "Fine, fine. So brother, when are you going to find us a sister-in-law?" Whatever emotion Yun Hao had been feeling instantly vanished. "Get lost. Go bother someone else."